Would like to welcome everybody to the June 9th meeting of the New Bern Board of Aldermen. The prayer tonight will be given by Alderwoman Jamisha Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Today I would like to bring up Reverend Johnson to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Alderman Harris, Mayor, and all the aldermen, city manager, and the entire family of New Bern. We invite you to bow with us in prayer, and as we go in prayer this evening, we ask that we might offer our prayers and our condolence to the George Floyd family. If ever they need our prayers and our support, they truly need it right now. And we stand along with cities, towns, communities, state, and nation across this world to let the enemy know that blacks' lives matter. And not only black lives, but all of God's children's lives matter. Because he loves us one, he loves us all. And that's the good part about the fact that we serve a God that sees no color, no class, but we all are his precious children that he gave to this world that we may learn to love each other as children of God, to speak out for what is good and what is right in our families, in our communities, our churches, in state, nation, and world. If ever we need to stand up together and for what is right and what is good, we certainly need to do it today. Eternal gracious Father, the creator of all mankind, the giver of all good and perfect gifts, we humbly bow before you in this place of ministry, where you allow your people to come together under the leadership of this board, the mayor, staff, and citizens. Lord, we need you to clear our minds, dear God, from all racial tension, injustice, even hatred, dear God, that is raging all around us. Lord, we want to hear from you this evening, because you have the answer to every situation that we bring to this table today. You're a problem solver. You're a prayer answering God. You are mind, heart regulator. You can do what no other can do. So that's why we come to you. Unite us together around you, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, which are one in our midst. And you have been one with us from day one to this day. So let there be love, let there be unity, let there be peace in this place, in our hearts, as we gather to do the business of this great historic city, which you gave to us, the city that we love, and for all the citizens of this city. In the blessed name of Jesus, we thank you for hearing our prayer, and we thank you for answering our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bingle. Here. Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Odom.
Here.
Okay. This time we have some petitions, citizens. Thank you. Our first one tonight is Mr. Woods, James Woods. If you'd like to come up.
Got it, man. 4 minutes. See. Just want to make sure. I am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, City Manager, City Attorney. I have been watching you online, so I have been trying to keep up with what's going on. I received some paperwork in the mail. Well, before I say that, my father, when I was growing up, taught me two things: that my name and my word was the most important things that I could ever have. And I can remember us in this room that this board made a resolution to the city of New Bern that we will build back Stanley White where it is, unless FEMA determined that it could not be built there. I received paperwork that said that Stanley White is getting ready to be built, or is being looked at being built on Gaston Boulevard, not back where it is now, that the property has already been bought, that the RFP has been assigned for the new location and not the old location, and that none of this has come before the citizens, that it's only going to be moved 600 feet. I don't understand how that 600 feet comes into the equation from where Stanley White is now and where Gaston Boulevard is, unless that's 600 feet as a crow flies. But this board made a resolution to the citizens of New Bern that you would not move Stanley White unless FEMA decided that. If FEMA has decided that, where's the paperwork that says that? Not your word, the paperwork. Because I've seen everything else, but have not seen the paperwork from FEMA, or anybody that I've contacted from the citizens have seen the paperwork from FEMA that says that Stanley White cannot be built back where it is now. Why are you trying to move Stanley White from where it is without asking us what we want? We fought for this for years, and for the last 2 years, and we're back where we started at. You have the FEMA money, $5.5 million, $1 million plus from the state, $500,000 from the insurance company, for about $8-9 million to start on Stanley White. However, we're back at the same where we at. We don't want to build it there. We only want one gym. We want to build it on Gaston Boulevard. Why? And who made that decision for the citizens of New Bern? I just want you to keep your word. Your word is your bond. That's what my dad taught me. That's what I stand on every day. Those are my principles. If my word has to be broken, I'm going to come to you and say that. I'm not going to let you hear about it. I'm going to tell you me. I'm going to tell you. And you guys haven't done that.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Bernard White.
Good evening, everybody.
Amen.
Still got to get my name and address. Well, I'm down here because I received information that what Brother Woods was talking about is going to happen. I have a couple of things to say, and I'm a person that believes in telling the truth about anything, about anybody, if you ask me. And I remember when I called one Friday, and I talked to, we wrote this thing up, we're not supposed to call names, do we? Well, you know, I talked to the head person, say, over the board. And at a point in time, he didn't really know, but he told me that the head person, that would be that person over us, was out of town. So Saturday morning, I got a call. When I got a call, the word was, trying to remember verbatim, the word was 2 options. 2 alternatives or 2 options. The first one we talked about was Stanley White. We only talked to Stanley White for just a little bit, not even a minute. We talked about Stanley White and about putting the piles in the ground and elevating, we had to do the elevation, and that person told me that they was a certified engineer, and that didn't want the water around them. Then we went from there, and we started talking about 600 yards away. So when we started talking about 600 yards away, we never came back to Stanley White where it originally was. They gave me the ideas what they were talking about doing, of what might be done. And my words were, well, then we're going to have to talk to people about that. The reason I say talk to the people about it, because I, along with some other people, had a whole lot of people sign those petitions. And the petitions said in the same location. So what I've done, I myself is leaving it up to the community. That means we talk to the people in that area, and if they feel that it should be, then I don't see any reason that it shouldn't. We're doing a building in that y'all could have fixed it right back up. Could have fixed it right up and possibly still use it. It's no difference in the convention center or any area that's around the water. And I said, these are my last words that I said when I was here the last time, next to the last time. I said, why is it we have to struggle or we have to fight for everything that we get? Why some people just don't think that we're supposed to have or get something good or even make the same amount of money that some people make? My words up there was equal rights and justice. I ended a lot of time with that, and I said, during my lifetime, I'll probably never see it. So what I'm saying is that when it did come about, I said and talked to the organization about it when I met with some of the people, and I said, hold it. My word was build back where it was, but if he talked to the organization and whatever the organization agree with, then I can go along with that. And I've said it when I was up on that board there. A lot of people don't work for the people. You're supposed to be working for the people, not yourself.
Thank you, sir. Representative Barberly and former Alderman.
Okay, good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
All right, here we are again. We've been down here lobbying before you for a year and a half now for the Stanley White Center to be rebuilt right where it is, hopefully. And now we're here again. And I hope we're not having to start all over again. I think what happened was I was told that you guys had already made your decision. But last week, or the last time you met, you formed a committee for the Stanley White Advisory Committee, I assume. I'm on that committee, and we're going to be meeting one day next week, I understand, of that committee. So I was told that you'd already made up your minds and are soliciting for subcontractors. And so I said, well, let me go down here and see what's up. So I represent the Stanley White Committee that, you know, that was lobbying to you before. Do you remember me? Any of you? You know me?
Yes.
Okay. I was here before. Y'all remember? Y'all say you remember? You don't remember me.
I do.
We did.
I know we came here, and we were here at most of your meetings. Actually, if it hadn't been all of us, it would have been several of us who come before you because we want to stay on top of things. So we were hoping that we were finally working on the same accord, you know? We had met with a group and virtually, and at that time, we made a presentation of what you guys are now proposing, and you said to us, when we said, well, that's interesting, but what we'd like to know is the difference between building it where we will hope you will build it, at, you know, where it is, and wherever else you are talking about. If FEMA said you're not going to give me the money because you're not going to build it there, then let me know. But if they said they sent the money for Stanley White Center, we expect you to spend it for that. Because you told me you would, didn't you, guys? Didn't you? What's your name? You said the money was spent for Stanley White, and so you have to spend it for Stanley White Center, right? Okay, but we had these other options, and nobody contacted our committee. I don't know if you're talking to other people and told us, you know, what the alternative was from one against the other, and the cost of going to another location and the cost of rebuilding right where it is. So we wanted to know that. That's why I'm here tonight. I wanted to know if there's something I need to know, because we've come quite a ways kicking this ball down the street. And we're right here now. We want to make sure that what we're doing is kicking it in the same direction. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if you guys are on mute over there, that you don't supposed to talk back to me, but I'm telling you how I feel. And so I don't know what you're going to do with that, but you know we've done this. You know we've been there. We've lobbying and trying to, I mean, my man here sent letters to FEMA. I don't see him. I saw him come in. So we all sent letters to FEMA, went around the neighborhood getting these letters and these petitions out so that we can send to FEMA to make sure that we got the money. And so we got the money. And so why are we having an issue now? See what I'm saying? You still on mute? Okay. I'm not on mute, so you heard what I said. Now, thank you very much for this opportunity, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Anthony Rayner. Good evening.
Thank God I'm here. Today, y'all bringing a new generation. Today, we have discussed this before, that y'all won't keep it there. Today, I understand y'all. But today, when they get ready to vote again, I want y'all to look at them. You'll know who not to vote for if they're going to sit here and tell you a lie. I thought prejudice had left Bern, but it's still here. It is bad. When they put a rope around my daddy's brother's neck in 1946, it brought something in my mind today. I said, Daddy, why you didn't get it? He said, I wouldn't have been your father. But today, why will someone change their mind about putting something somewhere that's in New Bern in 1953, the whole city flooded during Hurricane Hazel? Now, what's the difference? Today, if you would have cleaned them ditches out, that place wouldn't have flooded. Today, if you wouldn't put no apartments on that building over there, it wouldn't have flooded. But I see where y'all going at.
That's why y'all have want a road to run down the right-hand side of it, left-hand side, whatever side it's on. So later on, y'all people don't see the whole picture. They can take that land and put some houses up there. And then change the whole neighborhood again. So I'm asking today, the way to get it done right, but I'm going to say this here. We might need a protest about this. Instead of sitting there and talking about it, if they don't want to do the right thing, protest. The young people is not like the older people. Only thing y'all say to yourself, forget them. We're going to do it our way. And y'all way ain't the best way. So I want to know, what is y'all going to do? Each one of y'all can say something. What y'all going to do? It's on you. This is all on you. It ain't on us. Because we want to go right back into the same place. Y'all think it seems like to me, I just wasted my time to come down here. I drove 72 hours, not 72 hours, 172 miles today to get back here just for this. I think it's relative. But I want my people to remember, next year when voting time comes up or whenever it comes, I want you to look at them. Look at each one of them. I might even run for mayor next year. I might even run for alderman next year. But look at who around you. That's what makes sense. Look at it. If they ain't for you now, how they gonna be with you later? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Reverend Robert Johnson.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to come and to share with you some concerns that's on my heart. And as you know, that wholehearted for Standing White Center being built, rebuilt in its present location. And first of all, I want to say that it was just sad to read on Facebook that the decision about moving Standing White to another location that was printed on Facebook by somebody. And it just saddened my heart to know that you had to go on Facebook and read about something important as Standing White being there instead of coming from our officials. So I don't know who posted, but it's out there, and that that you are considering moving it to another location. The second thing that I was just happy when it came out in the Sun Journal on Wednesday, May the 13th. It was stating that Standing White Center to receive grant, and we was happy about the $5 million grant, and it stated that it was to be used for repair at the Standing White Center, and so that really excited me to the fact that it's going to be repaired, wherever is torn down and repaired, brand new. But that, the understanding that I received from that statement. And so, and another important thing that, as was stated, that we sent letters and petitions to FEMA because we were instructed, by this board to, if we want our concerns about Standing White known, we need to make it known to FEMA, in which we did. And up to this point, we haven't heard from FEMA whether, could we ask, could Stanley White be built in its present location? And we haven't heard a word yet about whether or not that we could be built there. So we just a lot of unanswered questions still in the mix, and I just hope that at some point in time today that you will give us some clear answers and some honest answers about where we're going as we move forward with Stanley White.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Antoinette Bosky.
I kind of wrote something down, but I'm kind of not going to read it. I am just going to talk from my heart. There are many of you in this room who know who I am. And you know that I have been very big on unity, very big on partnership, and very big on ensuring the voices of those not heard that those voices are uncovered. In today's climate, of course, the death of George Floyd has brought to fruition what has already been deep-rooted and seated in America, and that is racial tensions and racism and hatred. And it hurts. It breaks my heart. It does. And what I will say is I am from New Bern, and no matter how much we want to admit it or not, yes, we have grown, but we have a lot more growing to do. We have a lot more learning to do and a lot more understanding to do when it comes to each other. I say that to say I've been a part of hearing the community talk about Stanley White and what they wanted. And they wanted to build back better where it was. And I have always said that it's not my choice, it's not our choice, it is the community's decision. It is for them to decide. So when we did have the meeting where we learned about the concept from the city, I thought, well, this is interesting, this is good. There's conversation, there is engagement, there is this desire to include. I was excited. I was really excited about it. But I was very, very disappointed when I learned that the intent was still to move Stanley White regardless. And when I learned of that intent, the call to action was sent out from the People's Assembly, the New Bern People's Assembly. Because at the end of the day, we don't have to live in the community. Our kids don't have to live in the community. We got to uncover the voices of the mama who lives in Craven Terrace with her kids and they depend on that community center. We got to uncover the voices of the grandma who can't make it to these meetings, probably can't get to a town hall, and they need to be heard. I say all that to say that there was $8.6 million between it all. And to demolish Stanley White and build it back in the same location, it's a total of that exact $8.6 million. If we move it 600 feet, the community concern is 600 feet removes it out of the community. It puts it on Broad Street. Let's be honest. Let's just be honest. It really removes it out of the community. It's on the outskirts, but it's not in the community. If we move it, there's still going to be another $3.1 million left. According to the numbers, $240 per square foot. If we're building the same 18,057 square feet, and we're talking $505,000 to acquire the property, then we're talking $3.1 million that's left over. Where's it going? Is it going back into this community that it was meant to benefit? I don't know the answer to that. The community wants to know, if it's moved, what happens to Henderson Park? What are the numbers? We got the numbers, but there's no idea of the funding. So many times this community has felt like they have been promised something and they've only gotten a piece of it. They've never gotten it all. And so we have to understand that the trust that we're trying to build right now between the community, between the representatives, it is trust that is basically trying to combat history the historical things that have occurred over time that have caused that distrust. It's caused the community not to trust their representatives, and it's caused representatives to feel like you're always under attack. And I know that's my 4 minutes, but let me say this right here. I think we have to go the extra mile. We have to go the extra mile and not just putting up a town hall sign, but getting Pat and Charlie and sitting on some porches and really getting to know each other and really understand what each other's story is. Because at the end of the day, the community's smoking about what they want. And the way to build this trust, we got to put our egos to the side. We got to put our pride to the side. And we got to be able to sit down and listen to each other, not to respond, but listen to each other to get an understanding and to be able to say, you know what, I might think I have the answer, but I don't have the answer because I can't tell you what you need as a community. Only you know what you need. And I'm gonna leave that
there. Kelly Rogers.
Hey, everyone. I come to you today as a product of the city and its people, and my mask is caught on my earring. My family moved here when I was 1 year old, and until I left for New York at 18, I really didn't know all that much outside of New Bern. I'm thankful to whatever powers that be for bringing me back to this community when it did, because I've learned so much from the activist community up in New York and about positive civic engagement and the dangers of a disjointed relationship between a community and its governing body. As you probably know, my mom, Juliet, continues to advocate for this city to open the door of opportunity to this town. Her passion for the people here was obviously passed down to me, as I feel strongly that there are major needs for improvement and transparency between the city and their constituents. I am here today on behalf of the stories I have heard, the hearts that are hurting, and the immediate need for change among the most vulnerable of our population. We've talked a lot about racism these past few weeks as the death of George Floyd pulled back the curtain once again and showed the ugliest side of a problem that we are all too willing to ignore. And it is with great conviction that I stand here today and reiterate a truth that we all deeply know. This is not news. The plight of the black community did not begin with Floyd's death or Breonna Taylor or Ahmaud Arbery. These deaths only highlight the patterns we see of the way that the government and authority impact the most vulnerable members, again, of our community. The initial platform of the civil rights movement bleeds into every facet of our community beyond police brutality. Our schools are affected, our healthcare system, public housing, and the list goes on. To say that this is solely a police brutality issue is to undermine the reality of so many, not only nationwide, but in this very town. We see the effects of this clearly with Stanley White, and the way that the good people of Craven Terrace are being what I will plainly describe as being held, and the constant dismissal of the voices of the people. This is not fun. This is not a hobby. You are directly impacting lives, and the weight of this responsibility cannot be lost on you. Before I go on, mark my words that the situation in Craven Terrace will be addressed. And while it may not be a city-owned property, they are in your city. Suffering a North Carolina summer without air conditioning is a hell that not a single one of you sitting up here before me would sign up for. So, how do we move forward? Transparency and accountability are clear areas of improvement, and that trust is earned. I recommend that beyond tangible action being taken, we invest in community self-governance. This means remote neighborhood councils as representative bodies within municipal decision-making. We assess community needs and invest in community-based resources, including groups from tenant unions to local shop owners and street vendors, prioritizing those from our most marginalized groups. And that means them seeing all of the money that they are promised by federal grants and nonprofits. Invest in community-based public safety approaches, including non-carceral violence prevention and intervention programs and skill-based education on bystander intervention, consent and boundaries, and healthy relationships between the community and its leaders. An echoed decision from this community is that for as much money brought in from grants and government relief programs, you might as well throw it into a dumpster and light it on fire. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Sampson.
All right, good evening to everybody. Good evening. Right. Let me give honor to God first and foremost in my life. I know you already know that I'm here to talk about standing white because that's in my heart. Because it's for the people that don't have anything. I know before the coronavirus, you all said that FEMA had given you all $8 million. Because I was here when you said it. So, if you say you didn't, that's okay. And then you came back with Tillis gave $5 million to rebuild it. And then you all said you had $2 million. But the way I added up was all together $15 million. But you all said $8 million, so we're going to leave it there. Okay? You said it was $600,000 to rebuild it. $2 million to put it on Gaston Boulevard to have it rebuilt. We're not going to count the $3 million that you bought where you could have put that. That's $5 million, so we won't count that. You said it's going to take about $7 million. You say $8 million. You say $7 million, which you already have to rebuild it right there where it's at. So my point is, we don't need you all to keep coming and taking things from us because black lives do matter. And I'm here to fight for the people. I'm here to fight for myself and for the community around me. We don't have anything left but standing white. That's our legacy. We do not need you to take it from out under us. You don't have your knee on our neck, but you got a chokehold on our neck. And I want all of you all to take in consideration that even though we don't have much, we do have our dignity. And I will not stand by and let you take the dignity away from my people. And we know that if you can build the convention center downtown where there ain't nothing but water, even Black Bill the Pirate came there in his ship, in his boat. So we know how that water got. I know goodness well you can build up standing white, and it's not going to take that much. You fix the drainage problem, that'll take care of everything. You build it up to the specifications it's supposed to be built up to, that will take care of everything. Just remember us. Give us hope. And I just want to ask you all a question. What is the status now of standing white? What are you guys going to do with standing white, Mayor Outlaw? Do you have an answer or what y'all going to do with it?
This is a request of petitions of citizens right now. The board might, when we're through with that, have some comments to make and give you some updated information on the standing white. But let's let everybody talk first, and then we'll see if we can give you an update.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Ethel Sampson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everything has been voiced before how I feel, but I want to let you know, if it wasn't a past, it wouldn't be a present. If it wasn't a present, it wouldn't be no future. And I just recall when I was 8 years old in 1941, when the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, I have a vivid remembrance. And the Japanese were sitting around with the people at the peace table saying everything was going to be all right, but they sneak around and bomb Pearl Harbor. Okay, 4 years later, when I was 12, the United States dropped a bomb over in Hiroshima. I remember that, and the war was over for us in 1945. Okay, later on, we had all of these peace marches and things, and I want you to know, I didn't miss a march when I was young, and when I was old, I didn't miss a march until this weekend because I wasn't able to come. But let me tell you something. It's not fair to our people to want something so bad. We pay our taxes. We do everything that's supposed to be done. And I don't see any reason that we cannot get just one. We don't want the whole pie. We just want a slice of the pie. And standing white is a slice of the pie. And please take your consideration and think about us little people right over there in the WV area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry Holloway.
the young lady right there, Betty Sampson and Antoinette, voiced a lot of the things that I wanted to say. So I'm gonna go in a different direction, and I'm gonna talk about what I did Sunday. On Sunday, this last past Sunday, I trekked all the way from Spring Garden, checking all the ditches, all through Duffy Field, taking pictures, going through, trying to see what the problems are, and had the maintenance department did anything about it. I took pictures. It took me about 5 hours to do everything that I did, and I don't understand why we're not addressing the real problem. The real problem is that the maintenance on this city has not been done, and that's why Duffy Field flooded the way it flooded. Now, everybody here knows that I petitioned for a lot of information from the maintenance people, and I know you want to know what I'm doing with that information. All right, so let's stop all of this stuff that we keep doing. Let's give the people what they want. Let's communicate with the people like we're supposed to, and it won't be any problems. You know, everybody in here. I just heard about this today, that you guys are gonna go ahead and take it and move it. Now, a couple of months ago, I heard the same thing, that you guys were gonna buy some property. How you gonna carry how do you say that? The horse before the carriage, or the carriage before the horse. So that means to me that you already know what you're doing. You already had that in the plan. So to me, this sounds like war. This sounds like war. That means that we need to get all the information that we can to try to combat this with maybe attorneys. I want to thank that young lady. I want to thank Antoinette, what you said. Betty, I want to thank you too. This whole situation really has made me upset. And I'm not that type of person. I wasn't even born in North Carolina. But I've seen what the city government has done to just Duffy Field alone. And it's time for it to stop. It's time. And like they said, you aldermen not doing anything, vote they ass out.
Elijah Brown.
Thank you. One thing I learned in the last few weeks, all of this going on, I can't breathe. I feel like all of my life. I just met a person that, he remembered me from school. But from the time I grew up, going through racial tension, couldn't go across George Street, couldn't go across Broad Street without getting chased. But when I got old enough, the chase ended. I'm old enough now. This stuff right here that's going on need to end. Now, my understanding as far as voting on certain things or passing certain things, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've been told from some is y'all do not make any decisions, you don't vote on anything without bringing it to the public first. So I'm just getting it through emails or whatever, or Facebook, but I want somebody on this board to tell me whether or not you voted on this property to move the gym to that property without bringing it to the public. And if you did that, and the law states that it's illegal, that is a legal stance to bring towards the board. Now, one of the last things I'm going to say, because I don't want to keep repeating what everybody else said. My math says this. It says all lives can't matter until black lives matter. That is my statement. I watched it, and some of the things I hear, I just hope it's not a lie. Some things I hear, I just hope it's not a lie. I watched at the age of 12 or 13, and I said it over and over. When you built West New Bern, I saw tandems after tandem trucks. Tandem is the ones that got a lot of wheels to it. One of the biggest dump trucks. They went down so deep to take the bad soil away from the baseball field and hauled that away and brought in good dirt. Why wasn't it doing that standing away? Now, everything that we said, that we heard, and that we experienced, about it being a trash dump and all that, y'all took our words and used it against us. I watched that guy that the city hired to do the soil test. You know what I saw? Now, you say that the foundation is the problem. Why would you go all the way over to the baseball field and do your testing and not by the building? Something is wrong with that picture. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is this. I talked to Stanley White's daughter, very good friends. Went to school with her. She gave me a picture from New Orleans would get flooded every year. A high school was raised up, and it was about 5 or 6 times larger than Stanley White. And it has no problem with water flowing. My problem is when I hear somebody say, well, you're going to dump water on somebody else. Well, if that's the case, I'm going to get it first because I live right behind Henderson Park. But I don't worry about that. What I worry about is when you tell the people, the public, something and you go back and do the opposite. I got a problem with that. Thank you.
Christine Webster. Christine Webster, 835 Pavey Avenue.
I changed my mind. I'm just going to sit here and keep on praying for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And David, 1001 Main Street. Did you want to put your last name on this, sir, or you just have David?
I was hurrying up, filling it out. I was trying to get up here. It's
What's
WOODBY.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Absolutely. My name's David Woodby. I'm partners with my cousin Terry Holloway at our store on Main Street. Moved here from Albany, New York, and came down. My sister was sick and lost her husband, so needed someone family to be with her. So we came down. From the first time I visited down here, I felt like there was something wrong. I reached out to, let me start with the storm, Florence. I've never seen anything like that in my life. We get snow. 2-3 feet of snow. Definitely not water, and definitely not anything like what was down here. Came down in the middle of the night as the storm was approaching and tried to help out as much. Got my sister out of her house. I reached out to Ms. Harris a few different times, got her number, found out, I know her mother, I know who her father is, and I figured there'd be some kind of I guess that's what you call it, camaraderie, come from the same place, whatever. There was none of that. So that started to make me feel uneasy. And then I started looking around and started questioning why. Asking myself questions that I already knew the answers to. Why are the streets tore up? on one side of town and not on the other? Why are there nice lights on one side of town and not on the other? Why are there sidewalks for people to travel safely, if they're walking, on one side and not the other? As these things kept growing, my list kept getting bigger, kept getting bigger. Why are these houses like this? Why does it take so long to get things fixed? Why isn't the city involved with this? We started to open up the store, and then we got our report, because you got to get a report done about crime in the area. And on that report that we had to bring to ABC or ALE, is that what it is? There's like 3 items on there in 3 years. So I'm like, wow. That literally happens between like 6 o'clock and 6:30 where we come from, you know? So for something like that to happen in like 3 years, I couldn't understand what this scary monster was. You know, that there's all this crime and all this, you know, these bad things. And along with crime, you tend to associate that with, you know, bad people. There's crime, there's bad people, it must be a bad area. And once we opened up the store, my son would walk, my son's 11, he would walk from our house to the store. No problems. Ever. No problems. My sister, 78 years old, will get on her scooter. 10 o'clock at night, ride it up to the store. Never a problem. Where I come from, that don't really happen. You know, you don't have 11-year-olds walking around at 10 o'clock at night without an issue. I feel like the area Duffy Field has been given a bad rap, and those who have the information, accurate information, don't use that information or clear up this bad stigmatism that's been given to Duffy Field, because there's an ulterior motive, and that's what I feel in my heart. Now, this is not something that I just heard of some things and then came in and said, hey, well, you know, bad is bad, and, you know, it's not like that.
David,
There's
4
nothing,
minutes.
I know, I got
4
4
minutes.
minutes, right?
Thank
I got it. So, with that being said, Stanley White, there's nothing for the kids to do. I'm watching, there's nothing for the kids to do. I bought footballs. I mean, my son's got 8, 9 of them. I've given them to him. Here, go give these to the other kids, play football, play basketball, do something. There's nothing for them to do. And what, are they going to cross a main street, little kids, to go do something? So, this ulterior motive is to shut down a community center. This is a community center. And as I've learned, it's in the name of someone who did exactly that. Helped in the community, which is why it's named that. Yet no one talks. I know Mr. Brown said that. No one talks about, or talks to the community about what your plans are to move forward with this. Now everybody's I think everybody's tired of like having the proverbial knee on their neck. And I think that something should be done about this. Definitely that building should not be moved. Definitely shouldn't be put out of the neighborhood.
Sir. Your 4 minutes is up, sir. We appreciate your comments.
So when are we going to talk? When do we get answers? I mean, there's got to be a back and forth. It can't be we say stuff and then you like pick and choose what you want to answer and then answer
and
it.
thank you for your time, sir. Your 4 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I think Alderwoman Harris wants to say something.
Woo! All right, so I've listened to everything and I've debated on everything. But first of all, Mr. Woodrow, if you felt like we didn't have a good relationship, I apologize. I don't ever want to have that. You can ask countless people. I'm very reachable. I make sure I take care and get things done, so I do apologize if you felt that way. Huh? No, I know, but I'm caught up in some things, and I'm talking, and so if we need to have a meeting and have a conversation, let me know. You have my number, and I'll guarantee that we have a meeting, okay? But I want to apologize if you felt slighted in any ways, because that's not the way that I carry myself. Second of all, I want to say that I have been on countless Zoom calls and countless meetings, and I've always stood with my position in saying that I wanted Stanley White to be built back in the same location. I sit here today frustrated because I've been sitting on this bench for 3 years. I have sat on this bench, and there's been individuals that try to blackmail me, harass me, and try to make me be quiet about certain things, and I'm no longer going to allow that to happen. I've said before, hold on, because I got to get it out. I've said before that I work for the people. I'm elected by the people. This ain't no stunt, and you could check Facebook. I'm not the one that posted it, and I'm not the one to put the word out. We had a Zoom meeting, and we let the individuals know. They've emailed countless and countless and countless times asking y'all for this information. They pay taxes. So I'm frustrated, they're frustrated, and they're asking for a simple answer. Can it be built back in the same location? Why can't they get that answer? That's the frustrating part. I was in DC when there was a meeting conducted, and y'all asked me about this property. And I said, I will support as a plan B if it cannot be built back in that same location. And that's on the record. Every time we had a conversation, I've asked about Stanley White. I am tired, they're tired of having to come to this meeting and find out what's going on. We have a general fund with $13 million in it, 34%. Why are we not spending money in this community? Y'all not going to continue to sit up here and operate this budget like that, or operate like you don't see these people, period. So if I have to sit up here and continue to be vocal, go on Facebook, put videos, have interviews, use all my contacts to put all y'all on blast, I will do it. Because I'm tired of y'all harassing me, stalking me on Facebook, texting me messages about things that's on my book. I'm tired of it. I am sick and tired of it. And y'all can feel how you want, because everything is recorded, everything is documented. I am tired of it, and you will not silence me, and you're not going to silence the people. Give them what they ask for, and if it comes back that it can't be built, then they have a valuable option. But let the people make the decision, period.
Before I make any comments, Alderman Harris, I think you need to apologize when you said we on this board, you're including me. And you know I have not harassed you.
I said we collectively. If you feel some type of way, then that's how you feel. But I'm not going to call names because I'm trying to be respectful.
Well, I'm calling names because I don't want you to put me out there as
Ms.
one
Bess,
of the board
right,
members.
Ms. Bess has never done anything to slight me or disrespect me, and vice versa.
And I have always supported you.
That's correct.
I've supported you with this standing
That's
right.
correct.
And so I just wanted to make that
I
clear.
understand.
Because I don't want the people out there to think that that's the way I feel. Because I support.
So for the record, Ms. Bess has always been by my side and supported me, but because I'm making a statement, I said we collectively because I didn't want to call nobody's names out.
Well, I'm calling names, okay? I don't have a problem with that. So I thank you for making that correction. I thank you very much.
We're having a board meeting. If you can, if you want to participate, please let the board have the floor right now. You had an alderman talking, and I don't know that everybody got a chance to hear what she had to say. So if you would, please refrain from talking so that the board can conduct business. Thank you. Do you want to continue?
The only other thing that I have to say here tonight is that I don't know myself why this information has not been given back to the public about why Stanley White can't be rebuilt back in the same location. That's the only thing that I have to say about it. I don't know why. I thought that information was given to the people. So at this point, I want to know myself. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, are there other aldermen that have comments? Mr. Stevens, could you give everybody a quick update of where we are with the Stanley White, and please be respectful of the city manager while he's talking?
Sure. The Stanley White Recreation Center currently, as you know, there was an announcement, just so I clear up some numbers and figures here. My job is to present y'all the information, y'all make the decisions. But just so there's no discrepancies on the numbers, it was just over $8 million that was funded. I think, Ms. Sampson, you called out $5 million from Tillis. That was just the announcement that the federal government was giving us their share of the $8 million. There's not an additional $5 million. It's $8 million total. So that includes our insurance proceeds that we got, as well as the federal funding, as well as the state share, which is the 25% portion. So all in total, it's $8 million, a little, just barely over $8 million. Yet to receive that money, by the way. It has been obligated, but we have not been given a check. So the announcement's been made, but the city has not received any of those funds yet. As far as the Stanley White process, I know Foster drafted up an RFP. The RFP was for services to be provided by a consultant to gather community engagement and community information and input. Did not specifically say the location, did not say it was going at a new place, did not say it was going at the same place. It is strictly to assist us with gathering information from the public so that we can make accurate decisions on what will be included in the design to submit to the board for consideration in the development and reconstruction of a new recreation center. So that was pretty much the gist of what the RFP was for, RFQ actually, so that we can get qualifications to find out, people who are representative of that. I know the board's had discussions up here about, do we look at design build process? Do we look at a, architect engineer process? All that stuff has yet to be decided. None of that information, when we send out RFP, it could be an architect, it could be just a firm similar in nature, which we used during Kidsville whenever we gathered the community's input on what they wanted, and specifically the kids' input about what they wanted back in that community, or in the Kidsville project. Very similar to that. So I'm not exactly sure, just spot on right now about where we are in the process. I believe that has closed. I'm sure if it's not, it's getting close to being closed and will be reviewed for qualifications at that point. So at that point, once we gather information, then at that point we would be looking at the design of the building, the location of the building, wherever anything is going to occur at that point. I think Mr. Brown mentioned something about soil borings. We actually took multiple soil borings. One of those locations was in the ball field. One of them was close to the building. One of them, I think, was in the parking lot of the building. And we do that so we can determine a cross-sectional area of where the existing site sits on, so that we can determine what the subsurface soil conditions are underneath the ground to warrant whether or not construction is feasible. And at that point, we have received that report back, and it's public information. If anybody wants it, I'm happy to assist in getting that information to you. And beyond that, that's kind of where we are, waiting on getting money right now. And I know there's an item that's on the agenda tonight to approve, and to, I think, Alderwoman Harris's point, there was a discussion regarding this being an alternative location, but the location, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, has not been determined yet to this point.
Mark, how are you going to sit here and say the location has not been determined? That y'all still lying to these people. You're still lying to these people. Because explain to me how we was in Reverend Johnson's church, or we voted and said that we was going to build it back, but y'all was looking for alternative location, and you did not even know what FEMA had to say. Explain that to me. I'm not I'm not coming at you, Mark, because I know that you have a job to make sure that you take care of all 7 of us on this board, but we all have a responsibility to make sure that we tell the truth and be transparent. It's a lot of closed doors meeting that goes up in here. And I know that people are going to come for me, and that's okay, because I know God got me, and that I'm not going to continue to let y'all do that to these people. They need better answers than that. There's no reason why you can't build it back there. There's no reason why you can't build it back there. You don't want to put that $8 million back in a black community. That's what it is.
Thank you. Thank you for that update, sir. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that the total amount of $8,006,649 be established in a project fund for the Stanley White Recreation Center.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Could we get some clarity on?
Yes, ma'am. You and all.
Right. So, what a project fund is that specifically for Stanley White?
It will
in the
be
same
earmarked
location?
and can only be spent for the Stanley White rebuilding process.
Where?
We don't know that yet. But the question is that there's some concern from the public that there's additional funds that's not going to be put back in that facility. The money will be put back in the facility. That's what the spirit of the motion is to ensure that.
The only other question is, can I have some clarity from Alderwoman Harris about the committee? You asked, 2 weeks ago, we voted to create the Stanley White Authority Advisory. And I want to know what's going to be the role. I thought their role was going to be to investigate all of this, to go back and forth, to make these decisions, to get all the information.
No, you
and then
didn't.
advise.
You thought the role was just for them to have a conversation and then bring back something, because y'all was really not trying to have that advisory board. Y'all afraid that
Did we not vote to say yes? It was a unanimous vote?
Because I had to beg y'all for that vote. Sabrina, are y'all serious right now?
Okay, we have a motion and a second before. If Alderwoman Harris, if you'd like additional clarification on the motion, we'll be glad to get you that. Do you understand the motion?
Yeah, the money's going to be earmarked specifically for Stanley
Okay,
White.
this time I'd like to have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Now, are we ready to go to the consent agenda?
No, we're not, because I have to say something.
Okay, go right ahead.
I don't know where I was at, because I must have missed that meeting when we agreed to rebuild Stanley White over on Broad Street. I'm not aware of that. So I don't know why it's being said that the city was going to build it on Broad Street. I was never a part of that meeting. I don't know anything about that, and I don't think that was said. My understanding was that if FEMA says we can't build Stanley White back where it's currently located, then we as a board trying to find an alternate location right within the black community. So I don't understand where all of this is coming from, and I wasn't a part of it. But now, if we can rebuild Stanley White back into where it's currently located, if we get that authorization, then that's something that this board has to decide. But as of right now, this was not decided. I was not a part of that meeting, and I don't know of any meeting that took place. And that's all I might say about that tonight.
Okay. Do any other aldermen have anything before we go to the consent agenda? Can we have a motion on the consent agenda or discussion? We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. Let's go to item number 7.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 7 is a presentation of the comprehensive annual finance report and audit for fiscal year ending June 30, 2019. As you all are aware, copies of the comprehensive annual finance report, also known as our CAFR and auditor's discussion analysis, were previously distributed to the board. A representative is with us tonight from Thompson's Price Scott Adams and Company, PA, They are the firm that represents us and performs our city's audit. Tonight, we have with us Alan Thompson, and he is going to present to you the findings and their recommendations for any kind of improvements with our financial systems through the audit analysis. Thank you.
Yes.
In front of you, you should have a copy of the audit and the presentation summary. The presentation summary should look just like this. If you'd be kind enough to flip over to page 1, I'll go through it as quick as I can. The audit findings says significant audit findings. There were 3, and I'll discuss those in just a moment. On page 2, there were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management. Management did provide us with a representation letter dated April 21st. We're unaware that management consulted with any outside accountants, auditors, etc. The 3 issues were the timeliness of the audit, recording or reconciling accounts timely, and then there's a few negative funds on project funds, etc. The other matters there is just a housekeeping item. Page 4, I'm going to attempt to give you as much information here so you can see where you trends, etc. So the 2019 numbers that's there are for the audit that we performed. The prior 4 years presented are to get you a feel for where it's going up, down, sideways, etc., so that it's just not a number in context. So when we say total fund balance in the general fund at $22,829,000, you can see what it was for the prior 4 years. The unavailable fund balance reserved for state statutes, prepaid $19,111,000, restricted and assigned $21,187,000. Total general fund expenditures $29,679,000. Fund balance available as a percentage 12.53%. You can see that's a significant drop, and I'll try to address that in just a moment. Unassigned fund balance $1,539,000, and then unassigned fund balance as a percentage 5.19. You can see again where that's a significant decline. But right underneath that, you see unassigned fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures, excluding the FEMA Florence fund balance amount, and it's actually higher than it has been for the previous 3 years, 46.29%. And that's basically, there's a receivable on the books for the FEMA money, and that receivable means that the unassigned amount goes down, and therefore your percentage goes down in correlation with that. Revenues over and under expenses before contributions and transfers. General fund had a negative $57,000. Electric fund had a positive $3 million. Water fund $2.2 million positive. Sewer fund is $1,077,000 positive. Then you see your total fixed assets in the electric fund, followed by the water fund and the sewer fund. And then you see cash versus fund balance, and you see the cash in general fund at $6.8 million. Electric fund at $21,404,000. The water fund at $10,723,000. The sewer at $6.5 million. And other governmental at $3,049,000. If you looked at this and compared the cash in the general fund to prior years, somewhere in the fund balance, you see $12.2 million. If you were to add that to the 6.8, had you received it all simultaneous with the event, you can see you actually had more cash there. Fund balance in general fund again $22.8 million. Electric fund is $50,597,000. Water fund is $38,099,000, and sewer fund is $63,444,000. You see the 12.2 I was just talking about, and then the other governmental funds $1,040,575. You see the property tax rates there, and then the collection percentages. It's a really good collection percentage, and we'll look at some charts in just a moment. Total property valuation, levy amount, and then the debt, excluding OPEB, compensated absences, etc. Governmental activities is $10.2 million, and business type activity is $40,874,000. If you'd be kind enough to flip over to page 5, you can see a breakdown of your general fund revenues there. $29,607,000 in total. Breakdown of your general fund expenditures, total of $29,665,000. If you'd be kind enough to flip over to page 6, I'm going to try to show you some of this in chart and graph form so it makes a little bit more sense, hopefully from a trend standpoint. You see your total fund balance there in blue and restricted and assigned in red. And that restricted and assigned goes right back to that receivable that's on the books, why it's so high, even though fund balance and total went up. On the bottom of that chart, you see what we were talking about earlier, where the analysis of fund balance available dropped significantly, again, because of that receivable. On page 7, the analysis of unassigned fund balance, excuse me, same issue there. And then on the bottom, you see revenues over and under expenditures before transfers and contributions by the 4 funds there. On page 8, you see the total fixed assets, accumulated depreciation, and cash in their totals. And then on the bottom of that page, you see cash balances and fund balances in pie charts with total cash balances of $39 million and total fund balances of $111 million. On page 9, you see the property tax rates with the group weighted average. And then on the bottom, you see the collection percentages, not only with just New Bern, but with the group weighted average and the statewide average as well. And you see where the city compares very favorably there. On page 10, you see the property valuation and levy amounts. And on the bottom of that page, this pie chart says a lot about why there's so much emphasis on property tax rates, collection percentages, etc. 50.42% of the total general fund revenue comes from property taxes. And intergovernmental revenue, sales tax, etc. makes up the majority of the rest. And on page 11, you see where the majority, or 57.84% of the budget, goes towards public safety. Again, other than that, we're already on track to try and get to the 6/30/20. Make sure I see you early in the fall, and make sure everything's back on track. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Could you clarify for us the restricted and assigned fund balance? If you look at those numbers historically, they've been $5, $6, $7 million, and it's 21. I know you explained there's a receivable on the books. Could you clarify that? Because it to me, it really makes our fund balance look not so healthy.
And you're exactly right. It doesn't make it look healthy, and it's because of that $12.2 million that's sitting there as a receivable. It makes the city less liquid until the city receives those FEMA funds.
Okay. And just so for some clarity real quick to that, keep in mind that the audit and the analysis performed ended 6/30 of 2019. So we're closing in almost a year old. We have since received, I think, about $6.5 million of that $12.2 million or whatever from FEMA as reimbursement. So obviously that helps out that fund balance. And if I'm not mistaken, that 5% is now about 30-ish, somewhere right around there. So it makes a big difference whenever you start getting the funds back from FEMA. You'll see that change reflected in the 6/30/2020 audit findings whenever we see that in the fall.
You know, if you look back, Alderman Astor, with all your involvement in FEMA, after Hurricane Florence, we normally are $3 or $4 million hurricane damage, and it was initially we were 12 and 13, and so I don't know that any of us knew fund balance wise or any cash flow or anything else how we were going to maintain, sustain last year's spending, and so it was a tough year. So I think we're financially doing pretty good based on what we've been through and the FEMA reimbursements. Okay, does the board have questions?
If as you look at this, you're always welcome to give me a call. If you call the office and I'm not in, just ask for my cell number. I'm happy to talk to any of you at any time.
The only question I would have, or a comment, and it's all about the scope of an audit, and I know that this audit meets LGC and other government agencies, and I don't know that we could extend the scope, but, you know, out of what's happened over the Rocky Mountain, we all have concerns about making sure the public is aware that the city of New Bern is fiscally solvent and transparent in its financial what for all. So if you have any additional recommendations on additional items that we could include in the audit on a separate scope of work to make sure we have proper checks and balance to again, make sure that the governing board or enterprise funds or whatever are all operating effectively, efficiently. We would be interested in hearing your recommendations. Are other cities asking you questions about that?
We've had a couple that have asked for an internal control review, if you will, just to take a look at the procedures. We can't help you design that internal control process. As a board and a finance director, if you want your internal control structure reviewed, you'd have to go to somebody else, because we couldn't help really and then turn around and audit it, because we would then lose our independence on it. But you can, I would recommend reviewing them, presenting them to the board. You could even ask somebody who's independent to take a look at it to say, do you see anything we could do better?
I really was trying not to buy the same piece of real estate twice. That if you guys had that financial information and you were doing all of the the auditing that you're doing, if some of that information would not be germane to not necessarily a forensic audit, but a stepped up audit of items like, when Duke Energy has a customer in New Bern and they're I assume collecting a sales tax for the government, and I think New Bern should get a prorated portion of that. Those type of little functions, are we getting that and other sources of revenue, and at the same time making sure everything is operating away from the way things are in one of our sister cities in the past. Alderman Odom?
Yes, sir. In the scope of your work, do you look at grant funds, to look at the grant funds received and the grant funds expended to make sure that they match? Is that part of your scope?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay. And that's a summary we could get that shows grant funds flowing in and grant funds flowing out, what they were for. We can get that, Mary, I assume? Okay. Thank you.
And we could step up the internal control review as part of the engagement to make our best recommendation without, quote, making or to determine if there's any issues within the internal control structure without helping you, quote, create one. And I think that's what you're asking.
Okay.
Look at it harder and see if there's something wrong with it.
Okay. Does the board have other questions? We thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We don't need any action at this time on that.
No, sir, that's strictly information.
Let's go to item number 8.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 8 is conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance to annex 203 Riverside Drive. Mr. Robert Ulick petitioned the city to annex his property located at 203 Riverside Drive, which is a 0.4 acre vacant lot located in number 2 Township in the Sandy Point, Bridgeton area. This public hearing was originally noticed for the 14th of April. Obviously, we know the situation with COVID and restrictions imposed by the governor's executive order related to the pandemic. So this was opened essentially and basically pushed down until this meeting. So at this point, we'd like to hold a public hearing and consider adopting the ordinance to annex the property.
Okay, I'd like to open a public hearing at this time. Anybody would like to come up and ask questions, make comments concerning this item, you're more than welcome to do it.
Mayor, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. Any other actions on that at this time?
Yes, sir. The board needs to consider whether or not they wish to annex this property into the city limits.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance to annex 203 Riverside Drive.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
sir.
I'm not sitting
That's
beside you.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Just for the city manager, our public safety officials have reviewed this and they're okay with this annexation.
This location, I'm pretty sure, is consistent with areas that are also within the city limits over in that area that we already have either contractual services or that we do provide our public safety services to already.
Okay. Anybody else? Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 9.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 9 is also a public hearing of the rezoning of 2409 Oaks Road. And also, if the board, once the public hearing is complete, wishes to consider changing this zoning, they will need to adopt a statement of zoning consistency. If they wish to not rezone it, it will need to be a statement of zoning inconsistency. If the zoning consistency is adopted, then they would need to adopt an ordinance rezoning 2409 Oaks Road. At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Ruggieri, who has a quick PowerPoint to show you the property and give you the details.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Looks like Colin rolled that up. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. The item before you tonight is the request to rezone the property at 2409 Oaks Road. Applicant is Nasir Al-Gharati. Property is currently zoned R6S. The request is to rezone the property to C4, Commercial 4 Neighborhood Business District. It's a small lot. It's 0.25 acres, a quarter-acre lot. A little background history on the property. It has historically been a commercial use on the property in the past, but now sits vacant after Florence. There's the property itself. It sits on Oaks Road between Duffy and Daniels. Jack Smith Creek to the rear of the property. Heading out of town, the property would be on your left. If you drove by it today, it would be red. It's the white building there, but they painted it red and done some site improvements, some flat work on the property in the past, so it does look a little differently, but essentially the structure is exactly the same. Surrounding zoning, it's a typical hodgepodge, commercial, residential, and around it, see the site is in the middle in the blue. Across the street is C3. Further down the street is C5. Yeah, that's that blue. And behind the property is the R10. R6 residential currently designed to accommodate single-family residential dwellings with a minimum of 6,000 square foot lots. The proposal, the C4 business, again, C4 Neighborhood Business District is a district that is which is the principal use of the land is provided for the retailing and goods of services to the surrounding residential neighborhoods. So, list of some of those uses that are allowed in C4, single-family residential, obviously low traffic, retail types of things, athletic facilities, indoor ones are allowed by right, outdoor by special use permit. Car washes are a special use permit use. Restaurants, as long as they don't allow takeout or drive-through, things like that, are allowed by right. Anything else would be special use. In your typical neighborhood residential services type businesses, physicians, dental offices, veterinary offices, things like that, professional offices, are a use that's allowed by right in the C4. Just for some clarification, we've seen this property in the past at the request for rezoning. This is some clarification on, we did make some additions to our code about a year ago or so, and specifically addressing vape shops. We created a definition for vape shop, and that's that bullet point 2. And we then further went in and removed that as an allowed use, the vape shops in C4. So that's been clarified. Vape shops are only allowed by right in the commercial 3 district. All utilities are obviously City of New Bern. In our regional land use plan, the area is identified as developed, so it is generally urban and characterized by higher intensities of uses that are existing. It is in the 100-year floodplain. The property is in the 100-year floodplain. Planning and zoning heard this on June 2nd. They voted unanimously to approve this recommendation to you all, to approve this rezoning from R6 to C4 for the property. And that's it. Any questions? I'll be glad to take them.
Mr. Jerry, could you
Yes.
go back to the
Vape shops?
No, to the slide that you had. When the list what you
Yep.
can, general survey of allowed uses.
Yeah.
What I don't see is what I think is proposed, and that's a convenience store.
Yeah, that would be essentially a low-traffic retail.
That's how you consider that?
Correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
because I was having trouble trying to understand that,
Yeah.
because I didn't see it specifically.
Yeah, we don't have that called out in our zoning code at all. Specific.
Consider it low-traffic retail.
Correct.
Okay.
You also made the comment that restaurants, as long as they didn't have drive-through, can a retail outlet have a drive-through at this location?
No, it would probably be special use. That would be something we would look at individually. We don't have, except for the drive-through alcohol type places.
So he can't drive up to the window?
No, we would call that, if that came to us, we'd have to look more closely at it. It's not in our zoning code specifically as a use, so we take a look at it, talk to the owner about what they're proposing, most likely make it a special use, or maybe, depending on the size and scope, might be a rezoning to a different, higher intensity commercial use. But right now, C4 wouldn't allow something like that.
Jeff, if I recall, this was grandfathered in previously as a use because it's residential zoning, but it has been commercial throughout its existence, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So my question is, how did the original zoning get applied to that parcel if it was a commercial building to begin with?
It was probably always commercial, and when we went through and zoned all the properties, we literally would just take big swaths and say it was all this use. So there's really no rhyme or reason as to the original zoning on what was there. Most likely it was a survey of existing uses. It's gone back and forth over time. It wasn't always commercial. So it could have been residential at the time, or not built when the original zoning was put on the property, and then had since changed. So that's
Jeff, about 35 years ago,
Yeah.
I was actually at that site, and somebody was living there.
Yeah.
And they were, a family had it, and their store was part of the building, so the store was in the front. They lived in the back side of it. So it served that, it was their residence, but I just think, because that was at the time not annexed into New Bern, and then it was annexed, and I think because everything surrounding it, the only other question I would have is, if something sits vacant for 6 months or more, doesn't it revert to the highest use, or back to the residential?
You lose your
Because I know it was
grandfathered
vacant.
status. We have all sorts of nonconformities, language and how to deal with nonconforming uses and situations in the code. But essentially, if a nonconforming use, which the commercial use would be, sat vacant in a residential district for more than 180 days, and the owner wasn't really trying to either sell it or fix it or do something, then they would lose their non-conforming status, and then whatever had to be put back on the property would have to conform with the existing zoning, which is where we are today.
Any other questions? I'm going to open a public hearing. This time, anybody like to come forward and ask any questions, make comments, statements, you're more than welcome to do that.
Good evening, all. My name is Pete Townsend. I live on Harbor Drive in the Woodrow Oaks Road area. I come before you on behalf of my friends and many neighbors in our community. We overwhelmingly disagree with this rezoning request. We see this as an opportunity to correct a non-compliant use of a residential property in a section of the city going through major rebuilding and transformation since Hurricane Florence. Currently, there are numerous homes being remodeled in that area, as well as new homes recently built. Lots of dumpsters and contractors work in that area to revitalize that area. Samaritan's Purse has recently rebuilt at least 2 homes in that area. Positive activity, including some recently repaired and renovated commercial properties that needed major work, was just recently done, and we're very pleased with that. Some of the homes in the immediate vicinity of 2409 Oaks are vacant, and we feel that there will be little chance of rehab if a commercial property and this proposed convenience store is allowed in that stretch of single-family residences. And I take issue with the picture that was shown earlier of Oaks Road. If it was taken from a different angle, you would be able to see that that is a row of residential houses, not the commercial buildings that you see across the street. We've endured past issues with this location as a fish games, borderline illegal activity, gambling. The rezoning application in the past was cleverly worded to provide amenities to the community. I know this application and vote is just for rezoning, but let me remind you, take the negative impact on the community into effect. If approved, a convenience store sells and makes most of their profits off of three main products: beer, wine, cigarettes, and lottery. We're not talking about fresh vegetables and fruit here. In my opinion, or my neighbors' and friends' opinions, stores like this don't provide amenities. They extract scarce and hard-earned money from neighborhoods. We don't want the obnoxious LED lighting and signs next to these homes that could be rehabbed. This lot could go back to residential and be a great location for a Habitat for Humanity project. I also point out the proximity of 2409 Oaks Road to an elementary school. Oaks Road has no sidewalks and barely any shoulder for pedestrian traffic. Tragically, I remind you that less than 2 months ago, a child was killed less than a half a mile from this location on Oaks Road. Again, Woodrow and Oaks Road was one of the hardest hit areas in the city during Florence. Now the city has an opportunity to continue that positive momentum and keep this side of Oaks Road residential. Once this property is zoned commercial, we lose that chance. We urge you to vote no on this proposed rezoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Anthony Rainer. The place has been there for years, and the guy just fixed it up probably 6 or 7 months ago. I think it should stay residential. I know, city, you get more tax dollars for this, but it ain't easy. Just like you said, it'll be mostly for alcohol, beer, and a few more things in the neighborhood. The reason I'm saying something, because I'm in that neighborhood all the time. Let it stay residential. Not for your sake, for the kids' sake. You got an elementary school right down the road there. And he ain't lying about the person who got killed down there. But if it were your kid, you'd think about it twice when you make a decision of changing things. Because for mine, I'll be probably different. But anyway, I'll be raising King with y'all. But the catch to it, the place is not big enough to call residential to start with. If you look at it, it ain't big enough, just ain't big enough. It just ain't. And I'm with my neighbors that I'm glad he brought that up. So if you can, keep it residential. It don't never be nobody there no way. It was a pool room one time, little stuff they had there, but it didn't last long. I don't remember it being a car wash there in the last 10 years. I don't remember that. I don't know where the car wash come from. Because I know the guys that rented for about 5 or 6 years. It was a furniture place, but the place should stay residential. Point blank, residential.
Good evening. I looked at the Google Maps on this, and this building is right in the middle of everything around it except for one place is residential homes. From Simmons Street, coming from Simmons Street, going back down towards, coming back this way. Now on the other side, yes, there's a commercial building that used to be, Smitty used to have his welding shop there, and it used to be a tire shop. And somebody used to do body work on Alabama. But this home, if you look at Google Maps, or this building, if you look at Google Maps, is right in the middle of the residential neighborhood. So if you make that commercial, everything else around it on that side of the street is residential. I mean, that's what's on the map.
Are there others that would like to make comments?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
motion and second to close the public hearing. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same.
Mr. Mayor, I got a question. What are our obligations here? I mean, what can or can we not do on this? I mean, it's been before what boards, what, I mean.
Yeah, it's been the P&Z, and they unanimously recommended the rezoning. But this is a legislative decision, you can do whatever you like.
Okay.
I would just suggest if you're thinking of denying this, you might want to continue your deliberations to let the applicant wasn't aware that this was going to be controversial given the unanimous vote they had at P&Z. So if there's a thought of declining this, you might want to hear from the applicant before you do that.
That was my question. Is the applicant here? Is anybody representing the
They
applicant?
had to be in Raleigh tonight. They couldn't be here.
Jeff, I have a question. Just hypothetically, if a convenience store comes there now, what restrictions are there for as signs and lighting, neon lights and all of that?
So the signage, we have a code that governs the amount of square footage that they can have, and it's based on the amount of frontage that they have along Oaks Road. From there, we have other regulations that guide the illumination of signs. You'll see throughout the city some of the signs that used to flash and move are not doing so anymore. So we've cracked down on that and reminded those store owners that that's not allowed in the city limits. But I don't know what their sign proposal is, but we'll be looking at a lot of convenience stores. They push the envelope a little bit as far as signage when it comes to putting stuff on the inside of the window. In the past, we used to not regulate that, but we're looking at that differently now. So we'll approach it like we do any other business in the city.
So, by the actually owner of that property is not here tonight, I would ask that we postpone this. But is time going to be of essence? I know you were saying something about a 6-month restriction in the use. No,
That's
okay.
already gone.
Okay.
It's your call.
Any other questions?
I'm just
Yeah, the motion, if you want to continue this discussion or the decision, you would need to make a motion to table until a subsequent meeting that is amenable to the applicant.
So what time frame are you looking at?
It could be at the next board meeting, which is our June 23rd, as long as it works for the applicant.
Alderman Best, I just want to make one comment for the record. I just want to go on record as saying I will vote no to this. I agree with Mr. Townsend and the other gentleman that spoke about it, the residential area on that side, and trying to at least preserve that. And there is a convenience store. If you come down the street and you go to the corner, I believe it's National and Watson. Okay, there's a convenience store there. You go down to the end of Oaks Road, there's a convenience store there. So there is something in that area for people to get something. And if it's not going to be milk and bread and juice and fresh fruits and things like that, I would be concerned. They could go down Simmons Street and go to Food Line, or is it Piggly Wiggly? I'm not sure what it was down there. But anyway, I just want on the record I'm happy to support and vote to table this until the next meeting. But I feel led to not vote for it.
Alderman Odom.
I'm waiting for the sidebar to finish up.
Okay.
Question is, they proactively said that they were going to put a convenience store there, I'm assuming when they went through the P&Z, which they didn't have to do, correct?
The first time.
Okay.
There
So
was no representation in June.
So theoretically, they could get denied.
Yeah.
They could come back 6 months, reapply, and say that their intention is to do something else with the property.
Yeah. Actually, I want to answer this question. The one thing you can't do is expect a particular use. You shall expect all of those uses.
Right.
Right?
That's what I'm trying to get at is every time we do a zoning request, we have to assume it could be any of those. We just can't single out and say, it'd be okay if it's a fruit and vegetable stand, but it can't be a convenience store. Okay.
Scott, they want you to the mic, she can't hear you.
Yes, ma'am, sorry. Yeah, you've got to anticipate that any of those potential uses can go there. So when you say no, none of those uses can go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion second for denial. Let's have a roll call just so.
We don't have a second.
I thought you made a second.
No, I did
I'm sorry.
Not for denial.
Not for denial.
I
I didn't even
know
hear,
you
but I
missed
just,
it, but I thought
well, yeah,
I
but I said I was happy to,
Okay.
Postpone it.
We
if
have a
that's the-
motion, but no
the
second.
alderman, I'm gonna let the alderman decide that one. I didn't make a motion, I just
No,
stated.
but didn't you second her to table it?
Yeah, did she make
Yes.
that motion?
Yes, so it's a
Yes.
second
So,
for her
yeah,
to
I'm
table.
fine to
I
table.
made a motion second to table. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Your motion was, and your second was to table it. I'm sorry. Let's have a roll call just to be exact on this, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
No.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
We postponing this until, tabling this until the next board meeting, correct?
That's the motion.
if they're
All right.
available.
If
I
they're,
thought is what.
It will be on the agenda, and if not
Okay.
continued, again.
Okay.
all right. Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Just, Mayor, and also I just want to add, since you did close the public hearing, it's closed at that point, so when this does come back up at the next meeting, it will strictly be the board's discussion or you're asking questions of the applicant whenever they get here.
Thank you.
Unless you would like to reopen the public hearing now.
Yeah, if you want to do.
Continue it too, so that everyone can ask questions. That might be a more prudent, so that no one feels boxed out from asking their questions and having a robust discussion in 2 weeks.
Can't hear you, Scott, they can't hear you, sorry.
You guys can hear me, right?
We can hear you, but.
Okay.
People at home.
Since I closed it, Mayor, I'll make a motion to reopen the public hearing and continue until the next meeting.
I'll second. Got a bunch of seconds.
Are you good with that? That word? We have a motion second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Let's go to item number 10. Let's see, we're going to do item number 13 first, and then come back and do 10, I believe.
No.
No, number 10.
10 is right.
We're going to
Well,
do 13 before number 11.
13.
okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 10 is a public hearing in consideration of the board to adopt a resolution approving the Pamlico Sound Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. In order for us to remain eligible to receive state and federal assistance in the event of a declared disaster, the city will need to adopt the Pamlico Sound Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Prior to the adoption, a public hearing must be held. A copy of the plan is not included in this package because of its volume, but it can be viewed online by clicking at the city's, at the www.pamlicohmp.com. You can go and follow the link at that particular site. So there's been a memo that's been included from Ms. Olin Salen, our Community and Economic Development Manager, and she's also here to answer any kind of questions that the board may have regarding this public hearing and the plan. Happy to take any questions.
Does the board have questions?
May I make a motion to open up a public hearing?
Second.
I don't know. You open up the public hearing.
Yeah.
And then you make the
Oh,
motion.
that's my
I just
bad.
want to see if anybody's having any questions before we get going.
I'm sorry.
It's cool. This time I'm going to open a public hearing. Anybody that would have any questions concerning item number 10, which is the Pamlico Sound Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan, you're more than welcome to come up and ask questions.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion we adopt a resolution approving the Pamlico Sound Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey, Mayor Outlaw.
Yes?
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. So at this time, We're gonna go to that item. Yeah, go ahead.
The next item, Mayor, is consideration of the board to adopt a budget ordinance for fiscal year 2020-2021. As you will all recall, I presented the budget to you on our May 12, 2020 board meeting. We subsequently had a public hearing that was held on the May 26, 2020 meeting. Included in the packet tonight is a budget ordinance 2021 that reflects no changes to the proposed budget as it was presented. So at this time, I'll take or answer any kind of questions the board may have. Comments?
Does the board have questions concerning the budget?
I did raise a question, and I want to just bring my fellow aldermen in. And I don't know if you got any resolution to this, but I asked about the 2 requested vehicles for animal control.
Yeah, Chief Summers is
While we were getting
may
2
have
vehicles.
stepped outside. Yeah, if you don't mind running, get him real quick. Chief Summers, he's helping out with all the folks. Ms. Bingham was asking about the 2 requested animal control vehicles and wanted to just some quick detail on that.
Basically, we're just asking for 1 animal control vehicle. There's police cars and then 1 animal control vehicle.
But it was just listed as 2 animal control vehicles? That's the way it was listed in the budget, correct?
It shouldn't be.
I'm sorry.
But I'll certainly take 2.
No, well, that's what I wanted to make sure. I thought there was 2.
I requested 1, but I will certainly take 2.
No.
I will look at it. Let me read
Okay,
it real
that
quick.
was I just wanted that clarification, so.
But there'll only be 1, correct?
Yes.
There'll only be 1.
Because you have 1.5 people, I don't know why you need 2 cars for one.
There might have been a typo. It will only be 1. And as a matter of fact, Chief's original request in the budget, whenever it was presented to me, was for 10 police cars, and we backed him down to 8, I think.
Correct.
So, and then the animal control car. So technically, it's still 3 less than his original request.
Okay. Also, some discussion regarding the COLA and the merit. So that, it was my understanding, and I guess I did not understand this though, and you give the COLA, that automatically goes and it continues. Same thing with the merit. It isn't a one-time, you get this, and then the next year you may get it or not get it. It raises your salary to another level and then keeps raising and raising your salary with merit. I thought COLA just did that. So I did ask for explanation on that. And my concern was that in this environment, we're not sure about the sales tax and everything else with COVID, and whatever needs we might have, that maybe we would just do the COLA and reserve the merit till our meeting in October. Are we still planning to do that in October, like review the budget and decide if we have more money, less money, whatever?
It's entirely the board's decision. We don't have a specifically planned board meeting, unless you want me to do it at a business meeting. But it was my in my budget message that I presented to you that I think it would be advisable, given the current climate and condition of our economy, and with whenever I drafted this, it was in May, so in April-ish, May-ish. So we're putting together a budget right in the middle of a pandemic, so we didn't really know when things were really going to be opening up. We're starting to see some ease of those restrictions, but it would still be advisable to me that we have a financial summit, if you want to call it that, in October sometime, to review where we are at least 3 to 4 months into the fiscal year, to kind of make sure our revenues are tracking the way we had predicted in this budget.
Okay.
When will they start the merit process? Does that
Merit
start
process is already complete, so I changed all of that several, 2 years back, Sonia, where we actually are on an annual basis now, a calendar year basis, not a fiscal basis, where we do our evaluations in January. Upon developing the budget, we kind of have a good feeling of where our revenue numbers are and where our expenditure numbers are for the upcoming year. At that point, we take into account any kind of possible merit or COLAs at that point and incorporate those into the budget presented, and that way I can calculate what the financial budgetary impact is going to be, so it helps in developing a pretty sound budget.
So the merit raises and the COLA has already been taken into consideration in
The merit and
proposed budget.
The COLA is based upon the cost of goods and services and basically the cost of living for January to January of 2019 to January of 2020, and then the merit is based on performance of the employees based on a scoring system that we have, and I break all of those down, and depending on where you fall within that range, you get a certain amount of merit increase based on what is proposed. And that is for the calendar year of January 2019 to December 31st, 2019.
No, it's understanding. I'm not asking to eliminate it. I was asking about the delay to see what the budget was, one way or the other, because COLA would be across the board. All employees get the COLA. The merit, it just depends on who gets what. It's based on your salary, too. The percentages, how you would go up. So that was my question. Just wanted to share that with the board, what I've asked Mark.
Mark, do you have any more updates on any sort of projections as far as sales tax, or are we still just basing off of what we did earlier?
Still tracking, I guess, basically. There's been no changes or recommendations from the League of Municipalities on any kind of changes to their original estimates.
And what is the 1.5% COLA? What is that dollar amount? And then what's the dollar amount for the merit that's built into the budget?
I think 1.5 was a little over 300, and then the total amount of the budget, and this is across all of the entire city, was about 600-ish, something like that. That's including water, sewer, electric, and general.
So the 600 is in addition to the 300?
No, that's the total.
600 total.
Yeah.
So 300 for merit, 300 for
Yeah. So what ultimately the maximum an employee, like your rock star employee, could potentially get, I think, was 3.5%. It was, so you got, everybody gets the 1.5 because that helps us take care of compression related issues with regards to salary growth and having to do salary evaluations every 5 years to ensure we're staying compliant with, the cost to live, as well as what other businesses are paying for or other governments are paying for certain employees and their their positions. The performance-based obviously is based upon how well an employee performs, and that can go anywhere from 0 to a maximum of 2% in addition to the COLA.
Mayor, I'm in favor of leaving the budget as is right now, and if we need to adjust it in October, obviously correcting Chief's car or the animal. We go through this every year in regards to the employees, all the hard work they do, time and time again. It should not be a discussion. Like I said, we have a big fund balance. Obviously, we have projects, but I feel like when we're negotiating for our employees that are here all the time, they work hard, they deserve to get their COLA, and they deserve to get a merit based on their evaluation. So I'm in favor of leaving it as is.
Is that your motion?
No, we're having a discussion.
And I don't want to change the budget.
Okay.
I'm not asking to change the numbers in the budget.
That's
I
my
would support
motion.
it.
I'll second that motion.
I was just asking about the process.
What's that?
That's my motion.
We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second at this time.
Is the motion to approve the budget or just the portion of the?
My motion is to approve the budget with the correction for the one animal control car.
And I think that's really more of a typo. Just on the main sheet, it said it was 2 animal control. I think in the numbers, it's still the amount of cars or whatever he was approved to get in the budget as it was presented. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget for fiscal year 2020-21 if there was no other discussion.
Second.
Well, we have a motion and a second, and if there's any discussion, I will start some off that I really appreciate the 470 employees at the city of Newbern. I appreciate them so much that I want to make sure that they have a job in the midst of what's going on with the COVID-19 and other things that are happening in our state and nation at this time. Part of that is that while we see a lot of our sister cities that have had to have furloughs or layoffs and things like that, we've maintained, and we did this because we asked staff to do it, to be lean and mean with our budget for several years now. And again, my part of thinking of reevaluating it in October, November, was after we see sales tax revenues and other things, we would have a better fiscal analysis of our city from a financial operational standpoint, particularly seeing things that could happen associated with COVID and other things. So I'm not going to probably vote against it, but I just am trying to be fiscally sound. I don't know which is better to have. I'm definitely in for a 1.5% pay raise. In my heart of hearts, I don't know if I knew that glass right there was half full, I'd be going with what your motion is. So my question that I struggle with is say, let's say things are not financially good in October, November. Would it be better that 470 employees as of today get a merit pay increase, knowing that that's $300,000, and if things are not good, there could be furloughs, there could be layoffs, or again, it's just a question of the unknown of our finances. We have made policy that our fund balance will be maintained, even though LGC requires an 8% minimal, that we will keep at least 25 to 35%. And, at times we've had in the 40s, and I think a couple times in the 50s, depending on the seasonal revenue stream of our city, particularly after Avalon taxes are paid, due in September, go out in September and do the first part of January. So that is my discussion, and I'll look if any other aldermen have any discussion at this time. If not, we will have a roll call. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I agree that I'm concerned as to what might be taking place with COVID-19. I'm also probably more concerned with the upcoming hurricane season. But I also have faith that our city manager will stay on top of it. And if there is issues in the near future, if he has to impose hiring freezes, that will certainly help with this situation. We've done it in the past. We can do it again. There's a lot of turnover in this city, and he could certainly have hiring freezes that can make up $300,000 real quick. Our employees, our public safety employees, and many of the other employees have worked hard during this COVID-19. Our public safety employees have been up to their elbows in it, responding to these calls and helping with these patients and getting these patients transported to the hospital. I wish we could give them a 10% COLA, but I think a 1.5% COLA is going to help them out, and it's going to say, we appreciate your work. We got a city manager that certainly knows how to put a hiring freeze in effect if things started, and we have a finance director that could certainly advise him if things started going bad, he could put a hiring freeze in effect immediately.
And I'd just like to add on that beautiful statement that we wouldn't be able to sit up here and do what we do if we didn't have our employees to make sure that they take care of the things that we request of them. And I understand what you're saying about COVID, but you also have to think that when we are in COVID, there are people that do lose their jobs. It might be a spouse that doesn't work for the city that loses their job and their money is low, so the extra money that's going to come from a paycheck may be able to feed their children and pay their rent and keep the lights on. So again, I agree with Bobby Astor that we definitely need to vote this through and allow Mark to do his job.
Alderman Bass.
Mr. Stevens, at this particular time, you're saying that we are okay. That's what you're anticipating, that we're okay based on all that's been said about what the unknowns.
Yes, ma'am. I'm charged with responsibility of providing you a balanced budget that stays within the guidelines of us being able to meet our obligations, both from an expenditure standpoint and a capital investment standpoint, whatever that may be. And I feel that this was presented based on numbers and recommendations that were provided by both consultation with the county with regards to sales tax that Ms. Hogan had with the county's finance director, our property tax evaluation with Mr. Antry with the county, and also with the state of North Carolina with the League of Municipalities. And I feel fairly confident with the numbers that were presented. And as you've seen from the auditor's standpoint tonight, had Hurricane Florence not been the current situation, we'd be sitting on about 40% fund balance right now. With the money that we have received to date, we're sitting at around 30%. I know that we will get all that tightened up here relatively soon as Mary's working through finalizing and getting the auditors ready for our audit coming up here in the fall. So we'll have a pretty good idea of where we're going to end up this year, but that's probably where it's going to be, in the mid-30 range. So I feel fairly confident as to where we stand at this current time.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else at this time? Seeing none, we have a roll call, starting with Alderman Dingle.
Alderman Dingle?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Let's go.
Mayor,
Yes.
excuse me. Can we possibly take a break?
Yeah, let's
Thank you.
make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we take a 5 to 8 minute break.
I second that.
Motion second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. Motion carries.
Michael A.
Let's go to item number 11. I do want to mention that earlier I had changed the schedule just a little bit, the agenda, because I wanted to discuss the budget and get approval of the 1.5% prior to the item number 11, which needed to be after the budget approval. So we're now going to do item 11, which would be the classification pay plan. Mr. Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate you drawing that to our attention. Item number 11 is the adoption of the resolution approving the classification pay plan for fiscal year 2021. This is in conjunction with the budget. The board annually adopts this in part of the process of the budget adoption. In the past, the pay plan was adopted as part of it, but it was recommended that the city break this out and adopt it separately. So for the last 2 years, it's been done in that format as a separate item away from the budget ordinance. So as you see here, the classification pay plan that is included in your packet tonight represents the 1.5% increase for the cost of living adjustment for the employees. So that's the reason why the mayor wanted to make that adjustment, just to make sure that the budget got adopted before we went and approved a change to the classification pay plan as he explained. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Does the board have questions?
Number 11, right?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the classification pay plan for fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none. Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Dingle?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 12.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 12 is our last item with regards to establishing our budget for our fiscal year 2021, and that is to an ordinance amending the schedule of fees and charges. As we do each year, we look at all the schedule of fees and charges that the city utilizes throughout the year and charges for services rendered. This is also part of the annual adopted budget that the board performs each year. This identifies in one place where people can find the fees that we charge for the services that we render. The fees identified in the schedule are included in the revenue projections for the fiscal year 2021 budget. These will become effective on July 1st of 2020. There's a memo that's included from Ms. Hogan, Director of Finance. There's a red line version that was included in your packet that shows the changes. Most of them very minor. Most of them were in the Recreation Department regarding programming fees. But I think there was a couple other minor changes across some of the other department fees. But other than that, it was very minute as far as the changes this year.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending the schedule of fees and charges.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Dingle.
Alderman Dingle?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 14.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 14 is consideration of the board to adopt a resolution establishing repayment terms for non-residential electric customers for the period of March 16, 2020 through May 31st, 2020. Governor Cooper issued Executive Order 124, as you will recall, that suspended utility disconnects for non-payment and specifying the administration of late fees and payment plans for residential customers for March 31st through May 31st. He has since extended that time until July the 29th of 2020 via issuance of Executive Order 142. As discussed at our last meeting, the board's desire was to offer some assistance for non-residential customers that were affected by the pandemic. The resolution that you see before you tonight establishes a 3-month repayment period as requested by the board for non-residential utility customers with past due balances between March 31st and May 31st. And those are the only periods that it would apply to. There's a memo that's included from Mr. Bouchard, our Director of Public Utilities, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
What does this do to the residential side? I know we talked about that. Or we have to extend it?
The
So it
residential
just-
side is
just
already
stays
included. That was the
extended.
executive order. This was outside of the executive order of the governor. So the residential side will be for this pandemic period, which will be basically from the 31st of March through the 29th of July. And then upon completion of that, they will have 6 months to repay that plan at the end of that. If there is a change in Executive Order 142, obviously, then we may need to modify it at that point. But this specifically is for non-residential customers and a 3-month repayment plan for the specific window discussed of the 31st to the 31st.
I understood, but at our last meeting, the motion that we made was to go back that as of June 1st, we weren't going to be charged. So do we need to make an amendment to that because the executive order has changed the date? No?
I don't see it necessary.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had that covered.
Charlie, question, have you heard anything from Electric Cities on the letter that was sent asking for some sort of need for support?
Well, it has been delivered to the governor's office. They are knocking on the governor's door daily, but there has been really no other change other than the extension to the order. And,
Do you know when that was delivered by chance?
I don't know for certain.
Okay.
I know that we emailed. We were going to send it via email because timeliness was of the importance because of he was looking at and taking information on issuing the Executive Order 142. I believe, Brenda, did we send a hard copy as well?
We did, and they acknowledged receipt.
Yeah, and then, but as far as the other municipalities and whether Electric Cities, I'm sure being Electric Cities kind of prompted us to also join them, that their stuff was sent as well, but I do not know the exact times and dates of whenever they were received or if they were received by the government.
I was on a conference call with NCEMPA last Friday, and it was discussed during that conference call that it had been delivered at that time. I just don't know.
Okay.
Somewhere earlier in that week.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution establishing payment terms for non-residential electric customers for the period of March 16, 2020 through July 29th.
Second. Motion and second.
May 31st.
So May 31st.
Yes, March 16th through May 31st.
Motion and second. Is there
non-residential?
Is there discussion? I have questions. Have roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 15.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 15 is a resolution approving a lease with Craven Community College for 106 and 114 through 120 Rim Street. Craven Community College has requested to lease the old city garage facility that's located at 114 through 120 Rim Street. This will be an expansion of the Volt Center campus, and the garage will be used as a diesel mechanic and heavy equipment operator training center. The proposed lease is for a period of 10 years with a one-time lease payment of $175,000 at the execution of the lease and $1 a year for subsequent years. The initial lease payment will be utilized to improve and upgrade the facility as detailed in Exhibit B of the lease that's included in your packet. Mr. Montaigne is here tonight, and we can answer any questions, as well as Ms. Olin Salem, who is also here, that can discuss any of the other Craven Community College items that they're looking at.
What's the 106 Round Street?
106 was the drive. Is that the driveway lot? Yeah, there's a map that's included, I think, in
I
your
couldn't tell
packet.
the address on that.
That's the back parking lot. It's the back area.
So that's its own address. That's where I was confused.
It was multiple parcels, but it's one combined location.
I think this is an awesome idea. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution approving a lease with Craven Community College for 106 and 114-120 Rem Street.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 16.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 16 is a resolution approving a special warranty deed conveying a portion of 703 Carolina Avenue to the Housing Authority of the City of New Bern. As you know, the board previously adopted a resolution approving an agreement with the Housing Authority of the City of New Bern to purchase a portion of the property located at 703 Carolina Avenue. That agreement was subsequently amended to extend the closing date from February 1st to June 1st and allow for an additional extension of 3 months upon payment of $10,000 that would be applied towards the purchase. The Housing Authority has exercised its right to extend the closing date to the latest option, which is September 1st, 2020, and has remitted the required $10,000 payment. The authority has indicated it anticipates closing sometime later in this month of June, and executing the deed now will mean the document will be ready for the closing whenever that date is set. There's memos included from the city attorney, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have questions?
We need affordable housing. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving a special warranty deed conveying a portion of 703 Carolina Ave to the Housing Authority of the City of New Bern.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 17.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 17 is a resolution approving the North Carolina Statewide Emergency Management Mutual Aid and Assistance Agreement, Revision 2020. As we do periodically, the North Carolina Statewide Emergency Management Mutual Aid and Assistance Agreement is distributed amongst all the municipalities and counties. The city needs to approve and execute this 2020 revision. What this does is allows us to contact other municipalities for mutual aid, like we did during Hurricane Irene, to assist us with items that we need, whether that be public safety, whether that be public works, whatever it may be. This is an overarching agreement. If you agree to this and you're a part of that program, and then you can just call for that mutual aid. It helps speed up the process for our local governments when applying for FEMA reimbursement after a disaster. And also that there's a transmittal that's included in there from Mr. Kite, our County Emergency Services Director, that's enclosed additional information. But happy to answer any questions you may have on this.
I think this is proven that it works, and I would like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the North Carolina Statewide Emergency Management Mutual Aid and Assistance Agreement, Revision 2020.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 18.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 18 is a resolution to request amendment to the Historic District Guidelines. Pursuant to Section 15-397A of the Code of Ordinances, the Board is asked to consider adopting a resolution to request that the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning and Zoning Board review and recommend any amendments to the Historic District Guidelines. What this request here is for is to allow the precast concrete products and construction of piers, docks, and marinas as part of the city's comprehensive flood resilience program. There's a memo that's been included from Mr. Ruggieri. Basically what this does is you are requesting the HPC to review and evaluate this as a potential use within the historic district as far as including it in their guidelines. They will make a recommendation back to you, and then the board will make that modification. So this is really just requesting their assistance in that.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt that resolution to request the amendment to the Historic District Guidelines.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 19.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 19 is a budget ordinance amendment for FY 19-20 General Fund and Grants Fund budget. This budget ordinance amendment will transfer funds of $175,000 to the Drainage Improvements Project Fund for the Duffyfield Wetlands Project, which you approved earlier. It also recognizes a hazard mitigation grant program award of $191,472 from the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management for the acquisition of 3 residential structures that are in a special flood hazard area. There's a memo included from Ms. Hogan, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
I know that this is total of about $870,000, so I think the question is, when can we get started on this?
I think this will actually, Matt, you want to comment on I know they're going through the engineering design phase.
Duffyfield Wetland?
Yes.
This project has been bidded. We're ready to award it after tonight's meeting. Mark has the contracts in his hands, and we met with the contractor last week for several hours on site. He's ready to go. We do have an encroachment agreement with the railroad that we're working through that process right now. To actually start the project, we want to make sure we're comfortable that that encroachment agreement is going to come through. We certainly don't want to start it and then not get the encroachment agreement, but we've had several conversations with the railroad. We're comfortable, and that's proceeding forward. So the contractor's ready to go, and I think we're looking at probably in the next 30 days, if the contracts are awarded tonight, that we will go ahead and move forward.
So are you shovel ready? Engineering is complete?
Engineering is complete. The contractor has already got the project, already started ordering material, and he's ready to go.
Okay.
And as you will recall, this is the first phase of three.
Yes.
Yes, 3-phase project. So this will be the first phase, primarily around the pond and the pumps. Is that correct?
Yes. This first phase is the enlarging the existing pond that's there that will take up that whole block basically, and then also putting a new stormwater pump station in and a discharge pipe underneath the railroad tracks.
You're speaking of the area, the pond on Biddle Street?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Does the board have questions?
No. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the budget ordinance amendment for fiscal year 2019-2020 general fund and grants fund budget.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 20.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 20 is a discussion of the board regarding widening of Racetrack Road and consider adopting an ordinance to amend the Roadway Improvements Project Fund. Mr. Kinsey had brought this to our attention at his request. Wanted to put this on the agenda. There's concerns with the ability of school buses to meet along Racetrack Road, and he's also suggested that there may be a need to widen the road similar to that of which was a recent project that we're currently working on, which is Airport Road. Staff has estimated the initial design phase, and these are clearly estimates, but the initial design phase is probably around $150,000, and the initial construction costs are estimated around $2.5 million. After discussing the need and estimated costs, the board is asked to consider an amendment to the roadway improvements project if they wish to do so, and include that as a budgeted amount, or if it's a study, then obviously we would need to establish that as an amendment to the fund as well. So at this point, it's just really more of a discussion of the board at the request of Mr. Kinsey, and supported by another member of the board.
Okay, well, just to get the discussion going, Alderman Kinsey and I have physically met out there with our public works director, and we have we know of drainage issues. The road out there needs paving. Obviously, a little bit of widening would be good, and I'm all for some of these things happening. This figure kind of, as we or dealing with Old Airport Road and other areas, the 2.5 million was a little strong for me at this time, at this stage, without really getting into this. I do know that hopefully with our FEMA projects, et cetera, that drainage will improve in that area, but at the same time, the discussion is that with the Lisbeth Avenue and how it will go out to the 43 connector and how traffic will get off of Glenburnie and probably go on the 43 connector and the alternative F, getting that traffic on over to 17, the dynamics of traffic flow and a traffic study and the future daily count of cars, the safety concerns of the buses and all that, bringing children to H.J. McDonald. I know we've discussed it some, and I'm ready to be a part of some improvements over there. I don't know that I'm ready right this tonight for $2.5 million. So that's just kind of opening up the discussion. I really appreciate the Alderman's hard work on this, because I know he works as hard as anybody I know for the public safety of his area, along with the drainage. So does any other Alderman have any comments, questions? I will just say this to try to continue to get the discussion going and to get Racetrack Road where we need it to be. Traffic counts aside and other things, I have thought that if one side of that road, because we have such deep, almost V-ditches along there, and the amount of potential underground utility that would have to be moved, etc., the possibility of, like we've done in other areas of New Bernadette, the alternative side of the road that is least problematic for drainage, etc., that whole area, instead of having to relocate Bobby like we're doing out on Old Airport Road and all, that we actually just culvert that one side, knowing that with the FEMA funds, et cetera, that we do get that drainage. Alderman Kinsey and the Public Works Director and I, we've actually gone and looked at some ditches that actually need to be redesigned. That tandem issue we had back there. So my question is for much less than 2.5, could we, which you see a lot of places, a perfect example would be Bridges Street extension in Moorhead, could we culvert, tile one side of Racetrack Road, widen it a couple of feet, but put 5 to 8 foot of asphalt for a sidewalk on both sides? I don't know that with all the, we're thank you for the $250,000 in the budget for sidewalks in our city that we're going to be spending. So the question is, and I think we need to sit down as the Alderman and two Aldermen with him, or myself along with staff, and work through this and see value engineering and other things if we can get that figure down. I thought, Alderman Kinsey, when we got started on this discussion, I was looking at around $500,000 to $600,000 as the improvement cost to get Racetrack Road where it needs to be. I think we need about $300,000 worth of paving at this time. Is that a good? Have you run the numbers on if we just did nothing but pave Racetrack Road?
Just to resurface Racetrack
Yes.
Road? No, we have not ran that.
Well, we all know that it needs resurfacing. It needs milling and resurfacing. So again, that's just my open discussion. I know that some of the board members might not know some of the things that just because it's a lot of physical investigation to get familiar with it. So I just want to bring you up to date on where the Alderman and I have been on this.
With that road being just turned over to us from the state, is it a possibility that we can go back to them to have a discussion with them? Is that a possibility?
I seriously doubt that would happen, but the way the state DOT right now is and the projects that are on hold and the furloughs going on, I think them paying us to resurface Racetrack Road is a very slim chance.
How wide is that road?
Road is currently 18 feet wide.
It needs to be 22.
The estimate we provided, basically where the $2.5 million goes to widen that from 18 feet wide to 24, and then adding two 5-foot bike lanes on each side. It does not include sidewalks, it includes bike lanes.
Right.
So you're extending it it will be extended from News Boulevard up to Elizabeth?
That's correct.
Widening and paving?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's where the kids walk from HJ all the way up to the apartments, which would be pretty much just before passing the ready mix company.
Well, it definitely needs to be widened, that's a fact. When you travel down that with the school bus coming, it definitely needs to be widened.
I support Alderman Kinsey in this project. I think we should be able to go ahead and take a look at the designs. I'm pretty sure, Matt, you're amazing at what you do. This is a rough estimate, like Mark said. It might be coming in less than that, but I feel like it's long overdue. And if we are not meeting the expectations of it at least being 22, why we need to work on it and go ahead and take care of it and fund the project.
So if everybody go ahead, sir.
Matt's brought up a concern that I didn't even have. I just assumed when I looked at the number it would include sidewalks. So you're saying that this estimate, again, very rough estimate, would be bike lanes and not sidewalks. So to me, I think that, the airport road project, we started that years ago. I mean, we went through several discussions, several meetings, several evaluations on what we actually wanted it to end up being. I still think Bobby wanted some more width there in some spots, but is it possible to create the fund to show good faith effort that we are in support of the project and fund it with some money to where staff or whoever else, if you have to send it outside for engineering, to come back and say, here's your options. Option A is to repave it. It's going to cost you this. Option B is to repave it and extend it 2 feet on each side. It's this. Then sidewalks, almost like a la carte list, so then we can look at it and see, what at the time we can stomach. Because again, we're talking about October having another budget workshop. I don't know if that would be enough time. It could be something we could evaluate then maybe, and then make a decision. Because we can't finance roads, right?
Typically, financing of roads is not something that's done. You could probably use collateral, like buildings, whatever they may be, that may be paid off as your debt collateral, but ultimately roads are something they typically don't finance.
Or a transportation bond, possibly.
Transportation bonds.
More projects to include.
Mark, I'm just curious, so we can go ahead and set up this project fund and basically just do the feasibility, because when Alderman Kinsey called me, he said, and that's how I was surprised that this was just about the feasibility of it and minimal funds to check out or to see the feasibility of what needed to be done there. So is that what we would commit, these $150,000, and that would be for,
the fund
research.
Exists technically.
It's already there.
So we have a roadway improvements fund, a project fund that already exists. So I think this is actually budgeting money towards whatever it may be, whether that's through a study, whether that's through the actual entire project, whatever the board chooses, is putting money aside in that project from the general fund so that staff then has authority from the board to go out and get the services that we need to be able to provide you whatever it is, whether that's a full finished product or whether that's just estimates as Alderman Odom as kind of a la carte decision points. So all of that stuff would be establishing in the fund, which we need to make an amendment to. We don't necessarily need to make and create a racetrack road and roadway improvements fund. We could potentially look at doing that at a later time if we need to separate that out from other projects that may be included, general projects that may be included. I think we did that with the old airport road project, but either way, that's kind of what the intent of this is.
So I think, taking the bike taking the bike lanes out and widen it, and the sidewalks, I think that would be the big interest right now, because a lot of the kids walk to school.
And if I can just interrupt for 1 second, it will cost quite a bit more if you take the bike lanes out and add sidewalks, because when you add sidewalks, you're going to be piping that ditch. And it's a large ditch and it's a big pipe. So that's the reason when we did our initial estimate, we went with bike lanes versus sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
The one
and how
thing,
long does it, What is the width on a bike?
A bike lane's 5 feet. 5 feet is typical what we try to get.
Oh, okay.
4 at the minimum. Now, if I can just elaborate on Mr. Odom's comment, is the budget, the $150,000 is basically our design cost to design the project. We estimated it between $150 and $175, and that's for full design plans, just like we did for Old Airport Road. If we were to get a consultant to come in here, just kind of look at, hey, option A, B, C, and D, give us some rough, good estimates on what those 4 options would be, it would be significantly less than that $150,000 or $175,000. Because then you're just running some
Well, my
different
only
concepts.
concern on 150 is, number one, I think I got about 3 pages of information, and I didn't have a lot of detail. I assumed where this was going, and, you know, we worked through Oaks Road, we worked through Old Airport Road. We didn't put sidewalks on both sides of those roads, and we have 30 square miles of New Bern. I just want to make sure we showed love everywhere, and, I mean, this is great. I'd love to see this everywhere, but the $2.5 million, if the board does this and spends $150, I think you need to commit within a reasonable period of time to do the whole 2.5 if that's what you're going to do. Because one thing I really, in 14 years in government, I just really don't like spending money on studies and then they get put on a shelf and 5 years later they're not ADA compliant or other things, and then you got to do another study. So I'm just want to make sure if you spend $150,000, that you're going to use it and not waste it on a plan that's going to be put on the shelf and not implemented.
But wouldn't that make sense then to do this a feasibility or look at different options and break it all down so you know exactly what you need, what you could have, what the cost of it, so that you could figure out what's the best way to do this? Maybe there's something.
Or you could do it in a phase.
Yeah, but I mean, we need to know what would be the best thing and what the cost associated.
I agree with the feasibility. I mean, that's the most
Uh-huh.
common sense, realistic, whatever Matt can get down in regards to having someone go out, like Mr. Odom said, figure out what the options are, and then we go from there. You know, obviously I'm for the kids, people in the communities that makes up a community. They need sidewalks, whether it's on one side or the other. You may have to compromise as a board, but people need sidewalks, and I feel like we need to go ahead and just allow us to figure out A, B, and C, and then go ahead and vote.
So are you kind of like saying that this consultant will come in and meet with the alderman and 2 other elected officials along with staff and?
No, I was saying whoever Matt decides to get to develop this, you know, plan, he's the alderman, so I'm going to lead what he wants to do, and then they come back and present to us, and then we, you know, help make a decision for Ward 4. I don't feel like we have to keep having ad hocs. I trust that Mr. Kinsey is able to do what he needs to do, and Matt is going to do what he needs to. Just bring us the
I'll tell you,
information.
when we started Old Airport Road, that was exactly the first thing we did. We sat down with the city manager, the street superintendent, myself, the assistant city manager, I think Jeff and his staff were there too, and we discussed the entire project with the project engineer so that he can come back with options of how to proceed and what would be the best way to proceed. So I would anticipate that even if we did just a feasibility study for far less than the 150, that we would do that same thing. We'd sit down with, you know, key members of the staff, maybe Alderman Kinsey, maybe the mayor, talk what our plans are, and then let him come back with several different options and cost.
What kind of money is that?
I would.
Do you recall what it was? Because we had 2 projects at that point we were looking at. We were looking at Trent Road and Old Airport Road, and we combined them into one and had them do like the feasibility study. Do you recall what that amount was?
No, I don't, but I think it would be well under 50.
Under what?
Well under 50,000 probably. Meet with us, do several different studies.
Well,
way more on other things.
I know we're still in the discussion phase, but with all the things that the city needs, my observation and physical examination with the alderman and other things that are needed, my budgetary relevant range is what I think the city, along with all the other things that are needed. You know, we have all these issues at Thurman Road and all. We have issues, the confluence of Thurman Road and Old Airport Road, and that's not necessarily incorporated into the widening. With all the many dynamic issues of transportation in Newbern, my personal comfort level of improvements to Racetrack Road from Elizabeth Avenue to Nice Boulevard is about under $1 million. Like, let's say 900 to $1 million. My comfort level is not 2.5 million. And I mean, I don't want to tiptoe through tulips. I just want everybody to know that I think you can create some pretty good public safety, particularly for our students and all, to traverse those areas. There are other areas of Colony State besides Racetrack Road that need some tweaking. So that's where I am. If y'all want to spend 2.5 million, go ahead.
I don't think that's what we're saying.
Right, we're just saying that we want to see what the options are. It may come back to be less, it may come back to be more, but it's our responsibility to do our due diligence, because this is something that Alderman Kinsey has been working on and being presented. Just like we support each other on different things, if we can spend $50,000 for someone to come and tell us the options, let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, Alderwoman Harris, the only thing I'm referring to is the 3 pages with not a lot of information on any of them, and the way this is presented to me is for approval of $150,000. Well, let me read it exactly. The enclosed amendment authorizes a transfer in the amount of $2,650,000 from the general fund balance to the roadway improvements fund for the Racetrack Road project fund. The initial design phase of the project estimated to be $150,000, and the initial construction costs are estimated at $2.5 million. So that kind of looks to me, walking and quacking and swimming, that the board is being asked to get ready to spend $2.5 million, $2,650,000. That's the way I read it.
So with that being said, so we'll go ahead and give him the opportunity to go find out what it's going to cost to get this done. And then from there, we can make the decision how much money we're willing to spend to make this happen.
I would agree with that, that once we know what the numbers are, we can say yay or nay. We don't have
I'm
to
not an
spend it.
engineer, but this is from what I'm hearing coming to me, and I'm giving you my feedback.
And the city attorney just asked me a question. That's a good point. I could actually reach out to some consulting engineers, get you some cost estimates for what it would cost to do just the, option 1, 2, 3, 4, and what the estimates are.
Absolutely.
And that way you know exactly how much you'll be spending to get to that.
Well, how did this get presented? Why didn't you do that in the original? I'm not trying to belabor this, but why didn't we have this tonight to discuss? Why?
It says discuss on there on 20, and it gives a synopsis of what he's asking for, and we're having a discussion. So is that a motion that are you looking for guidance, or do we need to make a motion that we're okay with at least $50,000 for them to go out and get A, B, C, and D?
Mr. Kinsey was wanting us to bring this before the board for discussion and possible consideration, correct me if I'm wrong, of this work and this widening at Racetrack Road. So we're left with the interpretation of putting a best guess estimate on what engineering might be, what the total project cost might be, or whatever. So that's the reason why there's not a whole lot of information, because we're trying to give our rough guess estimate based on we don't know where the discussion is going to go with 7 members of the board. Y'all might have said tonight, hey, we want you to do it. We want you to include the sidewalks. Make it $3.5 million. I don't know that. I doubt that you would do that. But I'm just saying it could have gone any number of ways. So we tried to just land on something. So I asked Matt to put together what the estimated cost that he put for the engineering cost, what the estimated cost for the project could potentially be, so that we could establish some kind of money to go do this work. And hence the reason why we also labeled it as a discussion, so the board at this point could consider it and discuss it, whether you even want to move forward with it, whether you want to do any range of different activities, or if you want to do nothing at all.
So at this point, then, we should just go get on with the design phase of it? And why can't we just take out, since we don't know what the actual cost estimate's gonna be, take out that $2.5 million at this time?
I think the
of
appropriate
transferring these funds.
I think the appropriate thing to do at this particular juncture, if you want some guidance from my professional opinion as an engineer, my recommendation, much like we did with the Trent Road and the old Airport Road project, was we went and evaluated what we felt, based on several options, what the potential cost would be for those projects. In doing so, we had an engineer go in, develop that scope of work, if you want to call it that, preliminary scope of work. And then from that, the board made a decision of, we want to go with this option A, option B, whatever it is. And because if you recall, we had the discussions based on Old Airport Road, for instance, in conjunction with our pedestrian and bike plan that we have on the books that's been sitting on our shelf and we use as a guidance tool. It recommended that we do, bike lanes all the way up to where the back entrance to Carolina Colors was, and that was kind of the option that was chosen, even though later on it was amended to extend the width of those at a later time by the board. That was the initial request, and the initial design was done so afterwards for that particular project. So correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I think that is where we kind of landed at, and I think also we landed with the fact that we thought Trent Road was really expensive, and we were going to just hold off on that one and get Old Airport Road done at this point, and then look at Trent Road in the future. And so now this is kind of the same thing. So I would recommend, very similar to what Alderman Odom is mentioning, is let's get someone to evaluate what would it be to put widening on this road. What's the best feasible way to do that? Do we do curb on one side and eliminate, like the mayor's talking about, and pipe and eliminate the ditch on one side and flatten out the yards? What's that kind of stuff? Put some estimates on that, and then the board has something to.
Well, I'll be on for $2.5 million if you spend $1 million of it on this, and you take the 1.5, and part of that is hire a consultant to ride around the city for about a week and interview a lot of our residents and see that. Alderman Kinsey and I talk all the time about extending those sidewalks from Glenburnie to the community college so folks can walk over there. A lot of people using that sidewalk, and then all of a sudden they get over on that grass. And they get in harm's way here, just like Oaks Road. And so, Alderman Bernard White, when he was here, what our dream was to take. We can't do two sides of the street. We were going to take one side, and we were going to connect all the way down Glenburnie, and then we were going to sidewalk Oaks Road, and then folks were going to get out here and walk around and get healthy. And so, I'm ready tonight to put a budget amendment in there for 2.5. $1 million for his, value engineer it to the tune of $900 to $1 million, and take the rest of it. Look around here at these areas of this city, like the Craven Community College area. Why? I don't care if the state's supposed to do that or not. You need a sidewalk in there, and there's 20 of those around Newbern that people are going to get hurt walking out here in traffic. That it needs a sidewalk, or it needs the same thing Racetrack Road needs.
I hate to jump on that because I do agree with the mayor, because I know I done talked to you about that, Kenzie. I don't understand why we don't, or we're not trying to do something to make sure, because there's kids that live over in his community that go to early college. Lights and everything are already there, so I do agree with that in regards to trying to get some sidewalks over by the community college and taking it all the way down to South Glenburnie.
So with that being said, we'll move forward now and do what we said we was going to do to find out how much it's going to cost. Therefore, we're done. That's a part of the discussion that we've had so far. So now it's time to move forward. Now we didn't have enough of this, so we can move on. Okay? I think we understand. I do. I know I do.
Be a good subject to talk about in October when we get our financial update
so
too.
So he can come back with the numbers where we can see. That's all we're asking for.
Yep.
Well, you're going to need some money to do that, aren't you?
He has a fund already for that. That's what he said earlier.
No, that's not what I said. I said that there's a fund that's already established, but if Matt's going to go out and get an engineer to get some kind of analysis out there, it's not going to be full-blown plans. That's going to cost $150,000, but it's going to be some analysis that's going to take.
We need to appropriate what?
We need to have some
50,
kind of
60?
number to work with.
What would be an appropriate amount?
I think the best part is let me come back with a real number at the next board meeting, and then you can establish that fund, put that amount in.
If it's under, a certain amount, then we don't have to worry about RFQ process, and we can exempt ourselves from that. But
I
Good
think
idea.
also too, based on what I'm hearing here tonight, it's obvious that there's a need for sidewalks in many areas of our community. Maybe in the fall or at some point, could we have a work session to talk about the need for sidewalks? I mean, we should do a plan and a study. Where do we need sidewalks?
we don't need a plan and study.
Okay.
We've got one. It's a
You've
bike
got
and
one.
pedestrian plan. It was done 10 years ago.
So then-
and we've been knocking those off, but we are limited in the amount of funds. If the board wants
Understood.
to give us a bunch of funds to go do sidewalks, we can do
But
it.
it might be a good chance to revisit it, take it out, let us look at the map, we can see what's been completed, what still exists, and give us an idea of where the cost is.
And
then-
some things may have changed that become more of a high priority.
Yeah, I don't know, but we could let us work on that and look at that, and then we could decide the funds.
I just have one comment.
That's
This
great.
is
I agree.
the type of discussion that you should have at an annual retreat when you set your goals and objectives. The goals and objectives of the board would be, we want to complete X% of our bike and pedestrian plan. Staff comes back with a number, we put it in the budget, we move on. This is not the best way to manage it, because we've gone from looking to see how much this is gonna cost, to it being on our agenda with 3 pages for $2.6 million, to the mayor saying, let's not do anything until we get some numbers back, to now we want to spend $2.6 million and put some sidewalks in there. So we have to be strategic about what we're doing, or we're going to keep coming back to the same thing and debating it over and over again. So that would be my suggestion, is we need to take a strategic approach, and that may be a workshop in the fall, once we figure out where our money is. But my concern is still, we approved the budget tonight. I heard today that there was Gulf Oil laid off thousands of people. So before we start allocating money, and that was my concern with this tonight, before we allocate too much money, we need to see where we are. And I think the suggestion that Matt's talking about, coming back with a hard number, that way we can look and we can see, is a great idea.
I second that.
Thank you. That was my motion.
Well, the board approved tonight quite an increase in spending on sidewalks. We approved, I believe, $250,000, and I certainly hope the board will individually, with their wards, get with the manager and get on the fast track spending that money, not wait until next August or whatever next year. Just go ahead and get it going. You know where those areas are where you need the sidewalks. Let's go ahead and do it. So do we need any other action on that item at this time?
Now we'll have Matt get some estimates on, or some hard numbers on what that's going to cost, and bring it back to the board for a decision.
Okay, item number 21.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 21 is an amendment to the budget ordinance for Drainage Improvements Project Fund. The Duffyfield Wetlands Project Fund is partially funded with grant funds at $348,102 from the CDBG program, and existing Drainage Improvement Project funds of $347,449. It's estimated that the total project cost will be $870,551, which includes professional services. This project fund needs to be increased by $175,000 to cover the full cost of the project. There's a memo included in your packet from Ms. Hogan. Happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have questions?
So where is the additional 175 coming from? General fund? Okay. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we adopt an amendment to the budget ordinance for the Drainage Improvements Projects Fund.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Before I make a motion, did you say it was coming from the general fund?
Yeah.
I didn't hear an answer.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
Mary said
Not as your head, Mary.
Oh, okay, thank you.
We gotta get her to the mic.
Yeah, we gotta get you to the mic.
Yeah.
Then yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 22.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 22 is a resolution approving a contract for Phase 1 of the Duffyfield Wetlands Project. This consists of expanding the existing stormwater pond on Biddle Street and increasing the size of the discharge pumps. It will also increase the size of the casing underneath railroad tracks and include a standby generator. The bids for the project have been received. Jones & Smith Contracting submitted the lowest bid at $789,920. It's requested that the board adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the contract with Jones & Smith, including all change orders that is within the contract amount for Phase 1 of the Duffyfield Wetlands Project. Mr. Montaigne's included a memo. Happy to answer questions.
Question. How wide is that bid?
How wide is what going to
The,
be?
the new pond that you.
It's expanding pretty large, but Matt has
The deck behind
the
it.
information.
To tell you the exact dimension, I'd have to look it up on a plan, but I will tell you, that triangle piece between the railroad and the school there, the road, it will incorporate that entire lot.
Wow.
That entire lot is gonna be the stormwater pond.
There's about, I think,
Well,
I want to say it was about 6 or 7 lots that were bought out in the old FEMA that is grassland now that will be that entire, and I can't remember, you got Bill Street, and then, I can't remember the name of that street, that's the K Street?
K Street.
Yeah, so K Street and Bill Street.
And the railroad tracks.
railroad, that separates, that whole triangle will become the new pond.
Okay, that's right.
So Matt, you said the casing's underneath the railroad tracks?
That's correct.
Is that the area over by the cemetery? Are you speaking of that area is gonna go?
No, it'll go underneath the railroad tracks and back behind, I think, Avenue B, or where it dead ends into railroad tracks. It comes over on that side somewhere.
Behind the school, Barbara.
Okay.
It currently discharges over there already. It's just, this will be a new.
Behind the Duffield School, is that where you're speaking of?
That's where the pond is.
That's what-
Right.
And then we'll cross the railroad tracks.
It discharges on the other side of the railroad tracks in the Riverside area where it discharges. There's a ditch line over there
Avenue
that,
B.
huh?
So I think it's the dead end of Avenue B.
Dead end of Avenue B.
Man, what size pipe is that again?
It's a 20-inch casing underneath the railroad track. It's a 12-inch discharge pipe, and the current discharge pipe is 4 inches.
So is that a pipe that would be able to hold water for the future, let's say 5 to 10 years?
Oh, it's all based on the size of the pumps. And the current pumps we have now are pumping basically 143 gallons a minute. New pumps are pumping 2,000 gallons per minute. So it's a substantial increase.
Matt, when you said it's gonna empty out at the dead end of B, you know, there's some houses down there, will that impact them?
It will not. If you look at the map and where the houses are, there are several actual vacant lots or wooded lots that are actually wet, that are actually owned by the city,
Okay.
and it's behind
They
those
abut.
lots.
Okay.
So Matt, I'm curious now, so how is this gonna affect, I know Biddle Street Pond. So how is this gonna affect the other side of Biddle Street going back over towards, Garden Street, where the cemetery is, and you got that canal running through there?
Everything that drains if it drains to the Duffy Field Canal,
Okay.
it will not be impacted by this project at all. It's everything that drains to the Biddle Street Pond, which is everything over in the Pavey area. I'll try to.
Essentially, it's the area is bound by the railroad, National Avenue, all the way up to probably Main, and coming back towards the Bill Street Pond. And it includes the Greenwood Cemetery area, all that kind of area is what drains down to that Bill Street Pond. It doesn't get down to the Duffy Field Canal, or there's none of the water that reaches down to where our existing other pumps are. That was part of the Jackson Creek Wetland Project. This is a different basin.
Okay, so the Jack Creek Smith project, that is one that's gonna come over and that will affect the Duffy Field area by the canal. From the canal going back over to the.
That's already in place. That's been in place for a while. That's the Jack Smith Creek project,
Right.
the Wetlands project handles the Duffy Field Canal,
Okay,
water,
that's
and
all.
everything else. This is a different basin. This is over towards
I
where
know,
Greenwood Cemetery is at.
I know that, but I just want to make sure that it wasn't going to affect the canal in any way.
No, it's
Okay.
going to
I
totally. It does
understand.
not go to the canal.
Okay.
It'll discharge straight into Jack Smith Creek.
Gotcha. So now, the standby generators,
Mm-hmm.
now how are the standby generators, what is their function? How are they used? Are you saying standby, is that a mobile generator?
It is a generator that will be there permanently.
Okay,
Diesel fuel. And if the power goes out, it will automatically kick on.
okay. It's only gonna cover the Biddle Street over to Avenue B.
It is just for that pump station.
All right. So within the Jack Creek Smith Wetland Project, there is going to be another generator
Totally
put
separate,
in?
but they already have generators there as well.
All right, thank you.
Or they're diesel pumps, but so they don't worry about electricity, but they're covered.
Right. They're diesel, so it won't
That's
affect if the electricity goes out. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution approving a contract for Phase 1 of the Duffy Fields Wetland Project.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 23.
23, resolution approving the partial release of an easement with Weyerhaeuser in our company. In 2007, Weyerhaeuser granted the city various easements over their properties to the west of New Bern to allow access to the city's new water supply wells. Since that time, access to the well sites have been approved, and many of the sites can now be accessed via paved roads. Thus, Weyerhaeuser has requested a partial release of the 2007 easement to unencumber a portion for the West New Bern development. The city engineers reviewed the request and determined the release will not affect the city's current operations nor impede any future operations planned at the site. There's memos included in your packet from Mr. Hughes. Happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have questions?
No question, I'd like to make consider adopting the resolution approving the easement with the Weyerhaeuser Company.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingham.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 24.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 24 is a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for the Federal Clean Water Act amendments of 1987 and the NC Water Infrastructure Act of 2005. Basically, these acts have authorized the making of loans and grants to aid eligible government units in financing the construction costs of wastewater and stormwater treatment systems. Staff is working with Withers Ravenel, the engineering firm associated with the Duffy Field Stormwater Enhancement Project, to prepare an application for submission. The total amount requested for the project is $885,000. Award announcements are anticipated in July of 2020. If the city is awarded a loan or grant, it is not committed to accept the funds. If it does accept the funds, it can decide at that time whether to accept the award in whole or part. There's a memo that's included from Ms. Olin-Salen regarding this, and happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have questions?
Yeah, I just have a question mark. Why would we not accept the money? If it's-
Financial conditions could change if there's matches that are required, especially if it's a loan situation. So there's different scenarios that could pop up that while we may apply for it now, by the time we receive notification of award, somebody's come in and bought all the land and decided to do it themselves. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that could potentially happen. That would be a reason for not accepting the award or deciding to back out at that point.
But potentially, that's not usually the case with grants.
Typically, it's not the
with
case.
With grant monies.
Yeah, typically it's not the case.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for the Federal Clean Water Act amendments of 1987 and the NC Water Infrastructure Act of 2005.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 25.
Thank you, Mayor. Our last item of business tonight on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's 2020 National Coastal Resilience Fund. The city has been invited to submit a grant application through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation 2020 National Coastal Resilience Fund, and if it's awarded, the grant would be used to support planning for future implementation of nature-based solutions to meet the city's restoration and community resilience goals. The grant amount requested is $150,000, and an equal match of $150,000 would be required. So keeping that in mind, if we do get awarded the $150,000, we will have to match it. Staff will seek additional grants to cover the match or use previous awards if possible. Once again, Ms. Olin-Salen has included a memo for your consideration. We'll have to answer any questions.
Board have questions? What's the board's pleasure?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's 2020 National Coastal Resilience Fund.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Beagle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Appointments, starting with Alderman Bingham.
Yes, I do have an appointment tonight for the seat on the New Bern Craven County Library Board. I do want to thank Ms. Ethel Staten, who has been a longtime supporter and board member of the library, and thank her for her service there. But I'd like to appoint Shelley Malloy. She lives on Henna Place, and she went through a process at the library where they asked people to submit and answer questions about use of library and whatever, and she has been recommended and voted on by the library board, so I would like to appoint Shelley Malloy.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Any more?
Nope, that's it.
Alderman Harris?
No, I don't, Mayor.
Alderman Astor?
Nothing.
Alderman Best? Alderman Kinsey?
I'd like to reappoint Raymond Langton to the PSC board.
I second that. He does a great job, so I second that.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Do you have any more tonight?
That's it, sir.
Mr. Davis, did you have something going on? Alderman Bass?
None.
Okay, Alderman Odom.
Yes, sir. One, I'd like to reappoint Pat Dougherty to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Attorney's report.
That's what that, Mayor.
City manager's report.
I have nothing, sir.
New business. I'd like to start new business off like, I just want to say I really appreciate the city staff and all the hard work you're doing during these trying times. I also want to say to my fellow elected officials, I also want to say that to each and every one of you, and if there's anything that I can do to in any way facilitate or help you in any way in your wards, or if in any way I can communicate better or help to bridge the gap in any way with any issues that the staff or the aldermen are dealing with, along with the residents, I certainly would love to be a part of that and do a better job if I'm not doing the job I need to be doing. So please let me know if there's any way I can assist. Alderman Bingham, new business.
Yes, I have a couple of items, sir. One, I've been contacted by the Firemen's Museum, and as you know, currently their lease is a 5-year lease, and they are having problems getting grants. The grantors want to see long-term leases in order to grant the funds necessary that they need for the museum. As you know, this museum is owned by the city of New Bern. All the assets belong to the city of New Bern, and what we'd like to recommend is that they are given a 20-year lease, a 10-year lease with an automatic renewal of a 10-year lease, so that they may be able to get these grants and other things they're using to operate it, because we don't pay to operate it. The Firemen's Friends of the Firemen's Museum raises those funds. So I don't know how, Mr. Davis or Mr. City Manager, how would you like to handle that? Just make a motion or
Well,
direction? Okay.
well, wait a minute. I've got a question. I mean, let me ask you, and I've already had conversations with Scott about this, but why do we even have to have a lease? It's a city-owned building and the city property's inside the building. Why don't we just have an agreement as
I
to
don't ask the city.
an agreement as to who's responsible for what, and not worry about this lease?
I think that in many instances, I know that Alderman Sabrina Bingham and I, from the very beginning, were trying to collect funds and get different groups involved, grants and all. First question they asked was who owns it, who's going to own it. Before I go make a $10,000 or a $50,000 grant or expenditure on that building, I want to make sure that the city next July is not going to just take and close it down and go rent it out for a restaurant or something. So I think this was just to give certain grants and groups that there are a lot of them that require some type of a permanent either ownership or lease. And because the way we set it up, the Friends of the Museum is totally separate, autonomous from the city in its bylaws and all. The lease was the best way to do it.
What, Mr. Davis, what do you suggest? Or what, how would you answer that question?
Well, back in the day, you guys remember, it was city operated, and it got so expensive, the board at that time considered closing it down. And a group was formed, Friends of the Firemen's Museum, to step in and try to revitalize that, get ticket sales up, bring private enterprise to it to make it more viable. It's never been self-sustaining, but it's a lot more viable. I think back in the day, the agreement was for the city to maybe fund $50,000, cap the funding at $50,000, and then all other expenses would be raised and dealt with by the Friends of the Firemen's Museum. So back when it was under that model, it just got very expensive, and this was a way to keep the costs.
Well, the only way it survived being closed was that, as I recall, the General Assembly, after Governor easily plundered the treasuries of a lot of organizations legally he could do to be able to fund the budget, he turned right around, or the General Assembly did, and approved a local option 1/4 cent local option tax increase. As I recall, the city did that and started getting that money back, and then decided to do just what you said. But if the General Assembly had not funded that 1/4 cent local option, I don't know that you'd have a fire museum today.
Yeah, I don't know, but, I mean, what, we need a lease though, is that your recommendation?
If you're going to keep this model, you need a lease. Otherwise, you're gonna bring the whole operation in-house.
Okay, but we no longer, the city no longer funds them, the $50,000 a year, is that correct?
I think isn't there?
No, there's no funding from the city at all.
Not at all?
Yeah.
We pay
None. Hadn't been for years.
We pay the utilities.
Yeah.
Okay, utilities, yeah, I thought it was something, yeah.
We maintain the exterior of the building, and
So-
we pay for the utilities.
So are you okay with a 10-year renewal?
We do, we've gotta go through some extra procedures to do that, but it's just following the statute.
Nah,
It's not that we
that's-
can't do it.
Then let's do it.
Okay, was that your motion?
Well, I mean, do we need to have you've got the directions?
You do
I want
want-
to make
you've
sure
got
everybody's
directions.
okay with that.
Is everybody good with that? Does anybody have any issues, problems with the 10 and 10? You'll bring that back, what, next meeting or something?
And that's the lot beside the museum as well, right, where the park's at? Okay.
The other question I have for the board, Mayor, to have some discussion is, I've been contacted by the Housing Authority for the last few months. Because of COVID-19, they have not been able to meet at the New Bern Towers. That's usually where their board meetings were being held. But because the building is occupied by mostly senior citizens and disabled people, they are at a very high risk. So they have not had their meetings there. They've done them by phone conference. They're trying Zoom. And as you know, it's very difficult to have the meetings. So they were asked, would there be any possibility if they could use Development Services building to have their meetings, because many of their residents can't access the second floor here. So we were trying to find a way to work with them, but still provide that so the public would be able to access it, and it would allow for some social distancing as well of the board members, rather than then continue, because they're unsure. It could be a few more months before they feel comfortable in having the public in that building. So I'm putting this for discussion before the board. I asked Mark about it, and he said we need to discuss it and get some thoughts. So anybody have
And some of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that it came before the board is recognizing the fact that their meetings typically don't start till 4. Is that correct?
Yeah, 4 to 5.
And if they ran
4 to 4.
over, then obviously we'd need to keep some staff there, as we have HR and some other sensitive things. So we'd probably have to have somebody there to lock up and make sure that the building's secure. So just want to make sure that the board's aware of that requirement, if so be it. Especially being that you're talking about handicap accessibility, because the 2 handicap accessible areas go through offices.
I understood. At least it's only 2 steps where, really 2 or 3 steps to get in the building.
Well, I mean,
versus-
there's handicap ramps.
Yes,
What I'm
I know
saying is, so
there
if
is.
if the handicap ramps are required, then they're gonna be required from both sides of the building, which means they're gonna have to go through city offices to be able to get there. So, it'd probably be advisable to have somebody from staff there to ensure that it's locked up.
Do you think it's a possibility that we could ask them to have their meetings a little earlier or something like that, so we wouldn't have to keep staff there for so long? I mean,
That would
or
be
would
a-
that even help?
Where are we with the Omega Center? Is it, or do we now have that availability to use that with our lease agreements?
It's a great idea.
So
Yep. Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday is what our agreement is for.
all bats gone?
All bats are gone.
So would that be a possibility to hold their meetings there?
Yes, it would. We just need to work with that group.
Okay. I mean, can I carry that back? Would that be amenable to this group? And can I carry that back to the
Perfectly
chair?
fine with that.
Just want to make it so that people could be in person and
Right,
not
it's
have to.
an asset to helping,
Yes.
you know, affordable
absolutely.
housing. We should be able to lend a helping hand in this process.
Yep. And that's it. Thank you.
Just real quick to highlight the previous item where you mentioned the Fireman's Museum lease extension. There are some requirements for us to go through as far as notification and public notice and stuff like that anytime you're doing a long-term lease of that regard. I think there may be an additional step. So it's probably not likely that it'll be on your June 23rd meeting. It'll probably subsequently be on one of the meetings in July once we meet the requirements
Well,
or
that's
whatever.
fine. I'll just pass that. I was contacted. I'm not
Yeah.
on that board.
Just wanted to make sure that the expectations were there.
Sure.
Okay, Alderwoman Harris.
Yep. Mr. Foster, the only question I have is, speaking of the Omega Center, what's going on with the program, schools getting out? What's that looking like?
Well, of course, with phase 2, where we don't have anything open. However, our summer camps start on Monday, so there will be a camp based out of the Omega Center.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that information.
Anything else?
Can I just, I want to know this, but when do we see any kind of program? So there's nothing that Parks and Rec is doing. We're going to do this day camp and that's it? Is there no other outdoor or parks they can go on the swings?
So our playgrounds are closed through phase 2, in line with the governor's executive order. We do have our tennis and pickleball courts open, our swimming pool open last weekend, so we are, our maximum capacity at the aquatic center is 75. Our splash pad is open. The maximum capacity there is 99 based on the square footage that Department of Health and Human Services is recommending. All of our parks are open. Basketball courts are closed because of the close contact you are with basketball play. We have opened the baseball, softball fields to the leagues. They are limited to just the players and up to 25 spectators per field. So practices are going on now. They're going to start playing their seasons later in the fall. Adult baseball, they started their play this past Sunday, and so they'll be playing on the weekends moving forward. We are starting a new special event. It starts this Saturday on the Lawson Creek Drive-In Theater. And so our first feature is going to be this Saturday night. We're showing Grease and American Graffiti. It's $5 a carload. You have to pay in advance online. And when I looked a few minutes ago, we've got about 75 spaces available out there. I think we only got about 20 spaces left for our first show. So we're going to be doing this throughout the summer. And this is one of the things that the executive order does allow us drive-in theaters. And so we're excited about that. Once we do start the summer camps, the recreation center will not be open to other activities because the state has given us strict guidelines on basically no one can be in there while kids are in the same facility. The number of campers have been reduced, so we've got to spread those out over the facilities as well. We won't be doing any day trips. It'll just be visiting the parks, visiting the swimming pool, and things like that.
No, that's fine. For the sign up, how they go to Parks and Rec to be able to sign up for these movies?
They can go online to our Parks and Recreation page at newbernnc.gov.
Okay.
Mr. Bryan. So will this be required that you have to stay in your car, or can you get out your car and put a blanket on the ground in front of your car, or?
You can stay in your car or around your car. You won't be, and we do have concessions, so you'll be able to go through the concessions line. Our restrooms will be open. Our staff cleans the restrooms several times a day.
This is so exciting.
Foster, are we utilizing our buses for transportation?
We will be utilizing the buses for the summer day camp. Of course, you got to have social distancing in that as well. So it's
So we're allowed, I want to make sure I'm clear because this has been really, really muddy. So we're allowed to put kids socially distanced on an enclosed bus, but we can't have them on a playground with a slide and monkey bars. I just want to be clear.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Well, there are a lot of inconsistencies, but our goal is to adhere to the governor's executive orders because you've heard about what happened in Alamance County with the race, but then of course you've got baseball, softball fields where we could only have 25 spectators, but we're doing our best to follow those guidelines.
Thank you.
Until we receive further updates.
Okay, Alderwoman Harris, you still?
That is all I have.
Alderman Astor.
Yes, Mayor. If you just wanted to make an announcement today that the Greenville Fire Department recovered the body of a young firefighter from the Greenville that went missing while swimming in Tar River with his fellow firefighters. It was a sad situation. It happened on Sunday, and they did recover the body today. And if you would, please keep Greenville Fire Rescue and the families in your prayers. Young 24-year-old firefighter.
Yeah, I saw that.
His goal was to become a career firefighter, and I don't think he'd been on the force very long. Do you know? His couple. I mean.
October last year.
So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Kinsey.
Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for all the hard work that they're putting out to help to make things better, to continue to do that. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Alderman Best.
Nothing.
Alderman Odom.
No, sir.
Before we go to the next time, still in new business, could you give us an update where we are, Mr. Hughes or Mr. Stevens, on the research on the portable stage?
I'm happy to give you some information, and what I'll do is I'm going to pass around a couple of things for you because we did go to the HPC. We got a COA for the permanent stage, if that was what the board chose to do. So in one of the handouts that the city manager is passing out shows the layout of where the permanent stage would be at Lawson Creek Park. And the dimensions of this stage would be 40 feet wide by 30 feet deep, made of block and brick and concrete construction with a covering similar to what you see on the second page with steel columns, laminated wood on top, and a metal roof. And Jordan Hughes actually did the design for us. So we appreciate that, Jordan. The cost estimates came back on that at $153,500. Then we've been looking at mobile stages, and so we got prices from 3 of the main stage companies. The best price we've seen is $130,000, and on the second handout you'll see what the actual stage looks like. So it's an engineered stage. The height of the roof is approximately 12 feet. It's 24 feet wide, 20 feet deep, with the option to add panels to make your stage 32 feet, 40 feet, however wide you wanted it to be, and however deep you wanted it to be. And so, yes, mobile stage will work out great because there are a lot of city-sponsored events that use stages, Mumfest, the concerts we do. We not only do things at Lawson Creek Park, we do them here at Union Point Park. We've done things over at Henderson Park. So having something virtual where we could do it at a variety of locations and even take it out to Martin Marietta Park before an amphitheater is done is a great opportunity. I did talk with Lori Mulliken today to find out how much was allocated in terms of insurance proceeds for the stage. And for the stage and the restrooms at Union Point Park, $155,000 was allocated. We've spent about, I think, almost $10,000 on the restroom with the roof and some other things. So we do have funds available to purchase a stage if that is what the board chooses to do.
I personally I'd like to see the mobile stage, because if we're gonna spend this amount of money, I want many citizens to have the advantage to use it in different parts of town than to fix it someplace, potentially to get washed away or whatever again if it comes in.
What type of vehicles it takes to pull this thing?
So the Parks and Recreation does have a vehicle that will pull this.
That's what I'm talking about. Foster got the money and the vehicle.
Yeah. I think it'd be great. My
It's like you would prefer over a fixed stage?
Yes, we're recommending that.
Alrighty.
Need a motion, Mark?
Where do you want to proceed from here? Are you going to come back to the city with the board with a recommendation and a little more detail of the three styles, or are you going to make just
all three stages are the prices are apples to apples, and basically it was Apex Stages, which was actually the lowest price we got. The highest was $150,000. So we're happy to do it however you'd like to.
And how would the board like to proceed with this?
Go for it. I don't know if we have to make a motion or whatever.
We need to make we need to do a budget amendment to do this, because obviously the funds that we've received from insurance proceeds have gone into the general fund and coffers at that point. So, and this is not a budgeted expense, but with the understanding that we incurred this damage during the hurricane and that some kind of replacement was going to happen. So we just need to make sure and clean up the accounting. We'll get that for you at the next board meeting.
Okay, cool. So we'd be ready to approve something at the next board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Alderwoman Harris, I meant to ask you earlier, can you give us an update on Juneteenth? Is it gonna happen? I know there were some events planned, but with it happening, I guess, next week?
A lot of the events got canceled. I know that I did post a Juneteenth town hall at Henderson Park on Juneteenth at 6:30. Just kind of telling the story about Juneteenth and having community engagement. I posted it out. I know it's.
Could you send me that information? Because I'd like to have it now.
And we gotta follow CDC guidelines of how many people and everything.
Oh,
So,
I see.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's out there, but I'm just
Well, I
making
haven't
sure
seen
that
it. That's why I was wondering, because I was originally on the original list and I got some
Yeah,
information, then I didn't see anything else, and so I was just curious what was going on.
I will send you the flyer.
Do we need a closed session tonight? Is there any other business to come before the Board of Aldermen at this time?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. Motion carries.